Yep.
Shit.
Nope. It was us.
That was totally. I hit the button and didn't hit the button hard enough,
Yeah.
apparently. I greatly apologize about that. Sorry about that.
Button fail.
Anyway, hi.
You missed all of our previous jokes.
Yeah, I know. We totally did the entire show and you guys missed
Yeah.
it. What a bummer.
Those were the best jokes of the night, probably.
Sorry. Yeah, for some reason, the button on the microphone, there's a mute button. And sometimes I hit the button and it doesn't unmute. It just decides it doesn't want to. So thank you for letting
Just
me know.
blinks at you. Just keeps
You're awesome.
blinking.
I know. I'm like, gosh darn it. Sorry. But yeah, we were saying it's friggin' hump day.
Yes.
And that's cool that we are halfway through the week, which is good. Me and Dusty feel a little bit better than we did
True.
on Monday. We didn't feel super great. We still don't feel top notch, but we feel a little better than we did. So that's
sure.
good. So
99%.
yes.
Going up.
Andrea, hi, welcome.
Oh, hi, Andrea.
I'm so glad that you're back.
Hello.
That's
Hello,
fantastic.
hello.
We're happy to have you. And as I put in the chat previously, we've got new emotes. Did you guys see the new emotes? You should check them out. You
Yeah.
guys are both subscribers. Dusty's going to put some right now in the chat so you can see them in all of their glory.
Yeah.
We got new ones. It's awesome.
Hooray. I was telling Sammy the little lurk ghost. I think I'm gonna have to change something on that because I didn't test it on the light mode or whatever. Because we all have all of our things set to dark mode, so
Yeah.
I just test everything up against black, and I didn't test it on light colors.
Who
And
doesn't have it on dark mode? That would
Yeah,
be
right.
so weird if somebody
Seriously, if it's
specifically
not on dark
wanted it
mode.
on light mode.
I don't understand how you read it.
And I don't know why it took until just like a couple years ago for things to be dark mode accessible. Like it's the weirdest thing. Like I don't know why it took that long, especially for Facebook. Like come on, man.
Yeah.
Who wants it all
Seriously.
bright glaring in your face?
Yeah.
The answer's nobody. So
Somebody wants it.
I don't know. It just seemed like a real simple thing. Black or white. There you go.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that Twitch has that option. But I think the colors pop really good off of black background. But that was a
True.
good thought that if someone does have a light background, you wouldn't be able to see it as much.
Yeah.
But I think they're pretty awesome. I love
Yeah.
the dead one,
Yeah, the dead's pretty good.
especially. That's so good. You did such a great job making that. I love
And we
it.
got our own Mod Love.
We got Mod Love,
Mod Love.
and it's a skeleton rib cage.
Cool.
I love it. I
Shaped
think
like a
it's
heart.
so
Oh.
awesome. And the ghost one he was talking about, it's a lurker emote. So
A
if
lurk.
you guys are lurking, it's totally cool. You have an emote that can express your lurkingness
Yeah.
here or in other channels. So we thought we would try to make some that were fun that people would want to use in other channels as well. And then a super cool raid one too. So whenever we raid or whoever's raiding, there you go. You got a little cool raid rocket.
Raid
So-
Rocket.
Raid rocket, what you gonna eat? Raid rocket. Hey Joe, what's
hi,
up?
Joe.
Look at
Hello,
them,
Joe.
putting all of them out there together. They look so good.
Look at them all go.
Dang,
They look like a set, even. They
They
look like
do.
they go together. They match. They're
They
on
do.
brand.
They did.
Very
You
on
did a
brand.
great job. You did a great job. So Joe, I'm so glad that you are here tonight, especially. So originally, just so everybody knows, we were going to be doing an interview with Plain Toast No Jam tonight, doing tarot readings and just him talking about his, spiritual quests and all of that. But unfortunately, we didn't get to do that tonight. So we are doing it next week, which is great because I'm really looking forward to having that interview with him. We just needed enough time to prepare. We didn't have that. So we're going to do a special tonight.
Postponed.
And Joe, I'm glad you're here right now because we're going to be talking about past lives remembered by children. And this is a subject that is so interesting to me that has caught my attention for many, many, many years, pretty much as long as I can remember. Because I've had some interesting memories of things from when I was a kid, but nothing like some of the stories that we're going to tell tonight. So
Yes.
I'm curious if anybody in the chat right now has any interesting memories of things that they did not experience in this life or were not taught or anything like that. Did you guys have any kind of, I don't know, instincts or visions or memories or anything like that that you can recall? 'Cause I would love to hear it.
Yeah.
So,
Has anyone ever done a regression?
ooh, our past life regression.
Hi,
Lady, woo!
Hello.
I'm so glad you're here. We're gonna have a super fun time tonight. It's gonna be
Yes.
great, and it's even better now that you're here. Yay.
Yeah. The chat just got more pretty.
Yeah. Yes, it did. The lady has entered the stream. Happy to have you. But yeah, as far as the topic for tonight, doing children remembering past lives, it's so interesting because some of these stories, most of these stories, are very young children, and they don't realize that the things that they're remembering are strange or bizarre or not usual. And a lot of these kids just say these things with so much certainty. So it must be very trippy to be a parent of a child who remembers uh, another mom and another grandmother, or remembers who they were back in the day. I think it would be a really challenging thing as a parent, but at the same time, a very interesting thing. Like, I would love it if I had a kid and they started telling me all these stories. I would be very, very, very intrigued as to what on
Depends
earth
on the
is going on.
stories.
You know what? No matter what the story is, if they remembered who they were before or remembered other family members, I would find it so interesting. And, we all know kids tell stories, kids make shit up. But some of the things that we're going to cover tonight and some stories that you guys may have heard on your own are so detailed that this is not something the kid saw on a cartoon and has made up this whole entire story surrounding it. There's a lot more to it. So, let's see what Joe has to say. I was like a worker slave in ancient Egypt. Also, regular soldier dude raiding a castle, basically turning to my buddy and saying, "We're doomed." Whoa, Joe.
We're doomed.
How did you
Raiding
recall
a castle, huh?
these memories? Was this through a regression or a medium, like psychic reading, or was this just something you've always known? I'm really curious. I love this kind of stuff.
You're not my mommy.
Steve. Okay, that's fair. That could make it very confusing in that situation.
You're not my mom. Yes, I am.
I literally am. I want my other mom more. Just saw snippets during meditation visions. Wow, that's super cool.
Yeah,
that's very neat. Were you trying to recall memories when you had these visions, or did they just pop in? That's very interesting.
Yeah, were you looking for past lives?
Because sometimes shit just pops in, like the memory that I had as a young person. I wasn't looking for it. It just was something that was always there in my head. It was like this, like little, like I don't know, a GIF almost. It's not a very long video, but it's like a specific circumstance, and I just see this like one chunk of time with it, but it feels very real, and I've had it since I was a kid, so it's interesting. They were spontaneous. That's very cool, okay. Joe.
Cool.
Awesome. So, with Joe's story, my story, with a lot of these children's stories, I mean, there is, of course, many different ways to look at a situation with either an adult or a child, just a person in general being able to remember the lives of another. So I personally feel that it's past lives. I do feel like I have lived many different lifetimes, and I'm able to kind of have like a little window into them, but it feels very specific to me. But there's also the possibility that we are somehow tapping into the collective consciousness, and that everybody's lives are all out there floating around, and then some people, for whatever reason, have some kind of connection and just kind of can snatch up somebody's memory. So that's, I guess, a alternative possibility to the reincarnation. idea. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
personally, I feel that. I feel that I have lived before, and I feel that I've had a lot of different circumstances and lived different things before. And that's hard to explain a feeling, and it's hard to give proof to a feeling, but it's a very distinct feeling that I've had throughout my life. So, and then there's somebody like Dusty who has explored a lot of these things and does believe in it, but doesn't have a personal connection to the past, like specific images. Would that be correct?
Yeah. Yeah, and we kind of have different ideas on what past lives are and how they work. Um, I think we believe pretty much the same thing, but kind of where we divulge is she thinks that, or she believes that we kind of have a soul journey, like a soul path, where we may or may not have choices and be able to choose kind of people that are in our lives or experiences we're going to have or kind of when we're going to come back. And I kind of think that it's more of a conglomeration of energies that we just kind of end up with, and that we can see back into. So I think whenever we die and our energy disperses, there's probably, intense moments that cling certain energies together, and those clumps kind of get put into a person as they're coming to be. So whatever situation that is, that can kind of imprint some memories into a person. So, if somebody had multiple of these intense moments, maybe those different moments could get thrown into two or three different people, and everybody would kind of have that same past life essentially because they would have the memories from those moments from that past person's life. So I don't really think that it's like a soul bouncing from body to body, but I do think that we are grabbing energies and memories from past lives that, you know, we're pulling forward.
So you kind of feel like more of the collective consciousness idea.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
By the way, Chid, thank you so much for subscribing for 12 months.
Yeah, Chid.
1 year.
Oh, 1
That's
year.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's so awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Great.
That makes me really happy. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah. And we're talking about past lives.
That we are.
What were you in your past life besides Vanilla Ice?
Oh, that's an interesting concept. I feel like that you have, that it can be split into multiple different people.
Mm. But I do also,
it's
looking at my belief of, like ghosts and spirits being able to move along without the body, I kind of think that that's a new revolution. And I think that this is what leads into it. I think that energy clumping together, and the bigger and bigger those clumps get, we're finally getting to a point where the entire energy body is being able to carry on without a body itself. So maybe we are getting to a point where it is like a full-on energy body that's moving from one body to the next. But I would think that it would be a newer step in evolution.
That's very interesting.
But for older souls, could have been doing it for way longer.
That's the thing. I feel like if, for some of us who truly feel like we have been doing this forever, since the beginning, over time, I would think that it would be more fine-tuned or so, and that each individual energy body, each little soul, would be more confident and more self-aware of itself. So over time, it becomes more and more and more self-aware, which causes it to be able to retain more potentially, and then to be able to cycle back with more intention.
Yeah.
But with newer ones, even, I would say 500 years ago is still considered like newer, in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe if that was the first go around, maybe there just hasn't been as much time for it to really truly be aware of itself enough to hold on to things. So I do wonder if the folks that do retain this information are inherently older souls and have been doing this longer, potentially, or some of them just like brand new, in the big picture, and then just still have this memory. I don't know. Nobody really quite knows. That's the thing. All of this, nobody knows any of these answers. So this is all complete speculation. But nonetheless, it's extremely interesting that some of these children especially have these memories that are so distinct and so specific.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, Joe, that you have, but anyone else in chat, have any of you guys watched any documentaries or videos or read any articles or anything about this subject? I'm curious what your guys' background understanding is.
Chid, you got the London fog, huh? Damn. That sucks. Either that or growing up downwind of a pulp mill.
Oh,
Fair enough.
that's not good. That's not good. Well, that's why you have asthma. That makes sense. There you go.
I'm going to go London chimney sweep.
Yep. Chimney, chimney, true. Or chimney.
Chimney.
Wow, that's so interesting, Joe. The castle raid was especially vivid, and you feel the deep dread of what you were doing. You know, so, okay, this brings me to something that I personally believe, or lean more towards believing, I guess I could say, is that, you know, we all have so many different mundane moments in our life. There's so many things that we do. We go to the fucking Target or whatever and buy laundry detergent and shit like that. It's like every moment I don't feel stands out in a lifetime. Like when your life is passing before your eyes on your deathbed, are you going to think about all the times you went to Target? No, you're not. But there's very specific things, big points in your life that will come up, things that are invoking a great deal of emotion, whether that be love, like immense love or immense happiness that you had in a moment, or the other side, very strong hate or sadness or loss. You know, I feel like there's the things that cause extreme emotional responses are the things that seem to imprint on who it is that we are. And I think that a lot of those things are what can carry over in reincarnation, you know, in remembering past lives. It's a lot of times very specific things that were very emotion fueled. And as far as what ghosts are, I believe, you know, I feel that it's these intense emotions that they can't move forward for whatever reason. They're choosing not to move along to the next phase, whatever that may be, because of some kind of intense emotion that's drawing them here. Either they have their loved ones they don't want to leave, or you know, they had so much anger or hatred towards somebody or something, or sadness, that it just draws them here. It's like these earthly emotions that kind of resonate and trap us. So I think that that kind of goes for ghosts and with past lives and reincarnation as well. So a lot of times the things that are remembered by people and these children are traumatic instances, which is unfortunate because there's so many other wonderful things that we experience in our lives. And, you know, we wish that, you know, if you had some kind of shitty death or whatever, that, like, that's not what sticks out, you know. It'd be better if something cool stuck out, you know, like, oh, I went to this concert and it was the best, you know. I think that there is some choices maybe that we have in that, but I think that extreme trauma, as we know, just as humans, you know, that really, like, cuts deep on a lot of people. People don't even realize that why they do what they do as adults or whatever is a result of this trauma that we had as kids that we might not even know consciously, but it's in there. So it does make sense that something more traumatic would stick with people.
And especially death being, you know, the final trauma. Like, it's the closest trauma to you if you're going into another life, I guess.
Yeah.
And if it was something abrupt or extremely distinct, it would make sense that it would stand out and leave a scar, you know. It leaves an energetic scar that carries along.
Yes. Yeah, and with death, like you said, sometimes it's very abrupt and you don't see it coming, and there's no time for people to make peace with themselves, or that they had unfinished business, all of these things that can be so frustrating, and have that make it so much of a more traumatic experience. I mean, my goal, I don't want it to be a traumatic experience. I mean, who the fuck would? But, like, for me specifically, I really hope that whenever my time comes that I am aware that is coming, whether it be old age, whether it be some kind of illness or whatever. You know, I would like to be able to be like, all right, man, here it is. Here it comes. Like, I'm aware of what is happening, and I will have a moment to just kind of like think over my life and be like, okay, awesome. I love all you. Time to go, and then go. But it seems like if we're just sitting here having a conversation, all of a sudden I have a fucking aneurysm, and that's the end of that. Like, it would be extremely hard to just move along. I could see that being a really hard, traumatizing thing, feeling like there's so much left unsaid and undone, you know? So I could see that really being a lot harder for people, just in general. Hence ghosts.
Yeah, hence ghosts.
Hence
That's how you get ghosts. Yeah.
So.
All right. Yeah, hi, Bingebox. Welcome in.
Hello, Bingebox. We are happy that you were here.
Yeah. We're talking past lives. About to get into some videos and learn about some kids that remember theirs.
Yes.
And see what kind of proof we can find about them. 'Cause there's a lot of things that seem to prove that past lives exist.
There's certainly.
None of it can
Yes.
really be, scientifically proven, I guess. But there's a lot of very interesting evidence out there.
I feel that we're working on it. I feel that in time, I hope that there will be some kind of, scientific proof to be able to put out there. But really, just in my personal experience and in my life, like I don't need it to be proven by a bunch of scientists for myself. It's something that I feel very innately, and it's not something that I was like told about when I was a little kid. So it's just something that I kind of knew before I was able to talk to anybody about it. So it's not one of those things where it's like with religion. A lot of times people are taught these things from a very young age, and then they feel it. They feel the power of the Lord. It's like, well, you were told that from when you were a kid. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that's not possible. That's what you're feeling. It's not how I would go about it, but I think that we're being told a lot of things that can stick into our heads and affect the way that we see or think about the world.
Mm-hmm.
But in this one, nobody really talked to me about this kind of stuff, which was weird because later on I found out that my family, my grandmother especially, was very into this kind of stuff. But I was a little kid and people thought, oh, she's a little kid. We don't talk to little kids about this. And I was having this like entire crazy universe exploding in my head thinking that nobody understood what the fuck I was talking about and I couldn't talk to anybody. And then later on it was like, I wish that we knew that we could have been talking about this. But they're like, you're like 5, Like, we're not going to talk to you about dying and coming back. And I'm like, please, somebody talk to me about
this. That's the time to do it.
I agree.
Because by the age of 7 or so, everybody forgets. If you're going to learn about past lives.
Yes, that is the interesting thing.
Early.
That, a lot of these children, it starts at about 2 to 3 years old. And then around the 7-year-old mark or so, these memories start to
5
dissipate.
To 7, they start going away.
It's really interesting. So it seems like maybe they're more open-minded on whatever. They're just receiving a lot more information, and then the world starts throwing a bunch of other shit in, and then it just kind of, it seems like, I don't know, that door closes, and then they just are retaining other kind of information that's relevant to their life. But it's interesting. Some of them don't remember anything after the fact, or some of them still remember, but doesn't have the emotion behind it that it did when they were kids.
Yeah.
So.
BZ or potato, huh? Nice. Was your name Doug?
And you know what? A purple potato, I think, is the absolute best
top of the
choice.
Potato tier, really.
Agreed. There's no potato like a purple potato.
This is true.
So yeah, let's check out some videos. I saved a few different little videos here. And
all kinds of things we can look at.
Yes, there's one specific story that really gets me. Maybe you guys have heard of this one before. His name is James Leninger. Wait, Leninger. It's a kind of hard name.
Leninger.
His name's James. And this little
we will
kid,
call him
James, remembers his life as a World War II fighter pilot. This kid knew way too much about airplanes than he ever should have known. as a very small child.
He knew too much about a lot of things.
He did. Yeah. This is a very interesting, detailed, profound story. And there's quite a few different interviews and documentaries and stuff about this guy, talking about this to his parents. It was really from his parents' perspective where they were blown away. The dad was a skeptic. The dad was like, this is not happening in my house. I do not believe any of this shit. No fucking way. And then it got to the point where he started researching himself. He started researching what the kid was saying. And it definitely made a turn. And he was like, all right, there's no other way to explain what knowledge that my child has. It's so, so, so strange. So let's pull up a video here. We're going to watch a video.
May
together.
2000.
Okay.
May 2000. Spoiler.
Yeah, the narration's maybe not like the most awesome ever, but
oh, see, hold on. I moved our screen because I didn't think it was lined up. Hold on 1 second. We're gonna fix this because
I think that's a great idea.
I moved it because it didn't look like it was aligned, but apparently 'twas aligned.
'Twas aligned.
I knew there was a reason it was all off.
Okay, well, Dusty's saving the day here.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to learn about James.
2000, Lafayette, Louisiana. A mother awakens to hear the screams of her 2-year-old son.
He was laying on his back, and he was kicking his feet up like this and pounding his fists like this, just kicking and screaming at the top of his lungs.
Andrea Leininger cannot soothe her baby James. Eventually, he falls back to sleep. She thinks the nightmare is over, but really, it is just beginning.
Then the next night he had another one, and it was the exact same thing, the same exact kicking motion. And the more he had it, the more bizarre it became because it was so specific and so repetitive.
This marked the start of one of the best documented cases of possible reincarnation in history. Today, James Leininger is 12.
I play sports, baseball, soccer, go to Ascension Episcopal School. I have a lot of friends there. The other kids, when they were younger, say, I want to be a fireman. I want to be an astronaut. But I was always, I want to be a fighter pilot. I want to be in the Marines.
Oh, you got some school pictures.
Yeah.
Oh, they came out nice.
From the age of 3, James's parents began to hear stories from their son that shocked them. That their son was recalling things that connected him to a Navy pilot who died in 1945. They were skeptical. Bruce is an HR manager in the oil industry. Andrea is a former ballerina turned instructor. As Christians, they never believed in reincarnation, but they began to piece together an amazing story. The first clue came from the terrifying, non-stop nightmares that James began having at the age of 2.
He was saying, airplane crash on fire, little man can't get out. Airplane crash on fire, little man can't get out. That's when I was like, oh my God, is that what he's been dreaming this entire time?
What he was saying wasn't registering as much on me as what he was doing. He was flailing around in bed. And I remember the very specific thought I had at that point. This looks like The Exorcist. He was freaking out. I had this thought, is he possessed? What is going on here?
Within a year, the visions that greeted James in his nightmares began taking shape when he was wide awake.
I was reading to James, and then he sat up and he goes, Mama, the little man's going like this. And he laid down, and he goes, and he did the same thing he did in his dream. He was kicking his feet up, and he goes, the little man's going like this. Ooh, 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 can't get out, can't get out. And I sat him back up, and I said, who's the little man? And he goes, me. It still makes my hair stand up. And Bruce said, "What happened to your plane?" And he said, "It crashed on fire." And he said, "Why did your airplane crash?" And he said, "It got shot." And Bruce said, "Who shot your plane?" And he went, "The Japanese."
James then gave his parents the next uncanny clue, one that was very specific. The name of a ship from which he says his aircraft took off.
So I said, well, did your boat have a name? And he said, Natoma. And I'd never heard the word before. And I went down the hall and got onto the computer and Googled it. And down around hit 300, all there was this thing, Natoma Bay CVE 62. Clicked on it, and up comes this history of a World War II aircraft carrier. And so that was the beginning of what the heck is going on here.
Standing there staring at this picture of this little, it was like an aerial photo of this little aircraft carrier in the water, and we just stood there staring at it for a long time.
I had no answers. You know, how could he know this? How could he know a person? How could he know a ship? And what did all this mean? So that was where I really just said, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know what I'm going to find, but I'm not going to stop looking until I get as many answers as I can get.
This was enough to send Bruce on an investigation, doing his own research. Over the next 2 years, he learned about the men from the Natoma Bay, both living and dead. And James kept giving his parents additional, tantalizing, eerie clues.
Well, I kept asking him, "Do you remember what your name was? Do you remember what your name was?" And he always said James. And I thought, well, he's 2, he's confused. He thinks I'm asking him what his name is.
Then, James started drawing.
That was one of my mission things.
The mission thing, you remember that?
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite ones.
The same thing, over and over. Like a movie, compressed all into one frame. An air battle. Flak. A plane on fire. And his signature, James 3.
So one day I was in the kitchen, I was washing dishes, James had breakfast, and he had an airplane, he was just flying around like this, and he goes, "Mama, before I was born, I was a pilot, and my airplane got shot in the engine and crashed in the water, and that's how I died."
Oh,
And I was just
say so.
froze. It was such a bizarre thing to say, but it was just that matter of fact. There was no drama, there was no emotion to it.
At 3, James started pretending to be a pilot, with an attention to detail that astonished his father.
One day he dragged a car seat into the closet in my office, and he set up a little cockpit in there. He had a little play school console, and like it was going to be a cockpit, you know, and he's going back and forth. All of a sudden, the door comes flying open, and he comes rolling out of it. I said, "James, what happened to you?" He says, I said, "Did you fall?" He says, "No." He says, "My plane got shot, and I bailed out."
The next breakthrough came when Bruce was invited to the Natoma Bay Veterans Reunion. He asked about the names of men killed in battle. And this led him to finally solving the mystery of James 3.
He called me on the phone and he said, "You won't believe this. There's only one guy from Natoma Bay who was killed during the battle for Iwo Jima, and his name was James M. Houston Jr." And I said, "Wait, that would make our James 3." I was so excited. I'm like, "That's it." I'm like, "That's him. It's James M. Houston. His name is James. It's the James 3."
James Houston Jr., World War II Navy pilot. At age 21, on March 3, 1945, his plane was shot down over Chichijima. Now, the skeptical parents were sitting on compelling proof that their little boy really was reincarnated. Louisiana boy James Leininger spent his childhood recounting memories of being a World War II Navy pilot. Memories of a past life his parents could no longer ignore. From the age of 2 to 6, James continued to provide pieces of evidence of the incredible possibility that he was James Houston, reincarnated.
This plane, the Wildcat, is the plane that James M. Houston crashed in. And he was a test pilot for the Corsair. And he would test fly those off of carriers. The F-18 is the plane I want to fly when I grow up.
Since he was 2, James showed an unusual fascination for military air shows and an uncanny familiarity with vintage aircraft. His parents cautiously made contact with James Houston's only surviving relative, his sister, Anne. At first, she didn't know what to think about the little boy who claimed to be her brother, reincarnated. But then, James asked her for a painting that only one person other than her knew existed.
She sent this January 16th, 2006. Says, "Dear James, I do hope that this is the picture you asked for. It is the only one of me done by my mother. I am sorry to be so long sending it to you. These past few weeks have been very busy and hectic. I hope you like it. With my love, Annie."
James believed then, as he does now, that it was the dead pilot's soul asking for that picture.
I had asked her for a painting that my past mother had done for her and me. This was in her attic for 50 or so years. My parents and she thought it was crazy that I would know about something like this.
Anne, too, became a believer. And there were other, more chilling connections. James had 3 G.I. Joes he named Billy, Walter, and Leon. Names his parents thought were strange for a boy to choose.
Bruce is like, "Hey, James, what are you going to name your G.I. Joe?" And he's just playing. He goes, "Walter." So we were like, "Walter?" Bruce goes, "How come you named your G.I. Joes Billy, Walter, and Leon?" And he goes, "Because that's who met me when I got to heaven." And it was one of those moments where, like, the blood drained out of our face, and we just kind of walked backwards. Bruce went in the office. I went in the office. We closed the door. He's in there going through papers like this. I'm like, "What are you looking for? What are you looking for?" He finds this piece of paper, and he says, "Billy Peeler, Walter Devlin, and Leon Connor were all in the same squadron as James Houston." I was like, "When did they die? Did they die before?" He's throwing papers around, pulls out another sheet, and he looked at the dates of death, and they all died before James Houston died.
They all flew with him.
Although James's dad remained skeptical that reincarnation might really be possible, what happened next was uncanny.
So we're cleaning up the yard. He's playing in the leaves. I said, "I just love you to bits." And he goes, "Well," he said, "I knew you'd be a good daddy when I picked you." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Well, when I found you and Mommy, I knew you would be good parents." My head was shrinking to the size of a raisin in my brain. I said, "What do you mean when you found us?" He said, "Well, I found you and Mommy. I found you and Mommy in Hawaii."
James told his father that he saw them in a pink hotel, which is where the Leiningers were staying when they decided to have James. Bruce and Andrea were cautious about asking doctors and psychiatrists for help. They decided to find their own solution to James's ordeal. And their solution was to go to Japan, to the very expansive ocean where the pilot, James Houston Jr., died.
"Thou who art the pilot of the souls of men, grant me
The boat was right above where the wreckage of the plane was.
fallen in battle."
And Bruce did this beautiful memorial service, and so I thought that was a perfect moment for me to just say, I sat down with him and I said, Jim Houston's been a part of your life for as long as we can remember, and he's always going to be an important part of who you are, but you have a life to live as James Leininger, and it's time for you to say goodbye to Jim Houston. And he just started bawling. And he cried for about 20 minutes.
He had everyone
It was
on
the
the
saddest
boat.
thing I ever seen,
He had everyone on the boat.
crying. It's time for us to say goodbye. James Houston.
Goodbye, James and Houston.
Good job.
I salute you.
Good boy. You're such a brave soul. Such a brave soul and spirit.
It was weird when we got back to shore. It was something had changed.
He left something there.
He really did. It was palpable. You could see that he'd mourned that and everything that had happened, and was ready to move on. And he really did at that point. That's kind of when everything really changed.
I'm gonna be the same thing that James M. Houston was, a pilot.
The next picture that James Leininger drew was one of peace.
And a
The
flying
nightmares stopped. The memories started to fade.
I don't want him to remember anything about his past life. He has a life, you know, and I don't want him to be bogged down or confused or
He's our son. You know, he's not Jim Houston.
got a life to live.
Today, James Leininger can remember nothing specific about the soul that used to torment him.
Sounds like Jim Houston chose
At
you guys
12,
and you guys
he is
just
an ordinary boy
shrugged him off.
whose bedroom says something about who he is and who he believes he once was.
I'm in a Boy Scouts. I'm a first-class scout in the Boy Scouts. These are the books I got from Chichijima. Yearbooks, BB gun, my money bag,
Sweet.
my phone. I don't know when I got this, but this is my grandmother's rosary and my Star Wars stuff and a Blue Angels.
He doesn't talk much about his past life memories with his friends, but he doesn't hide it either if classmates stumble across a story on the internet. To James, reincarnation is a fact of his existence. It's part of his soul.
I believe that the spirit that I used to have when I was 4, 5, 6 has gone away. I'm just James now. It's not, I still have James Houston in me, I think, but it's not so much the bad history. It's more of the peaceful history of his life.
I like
Instead of the crashing of the plane, his death. I don't really think about my story so much. I just don't really talk about it. People ask me a question about it, I'll answer it.
There's gonna end on the
Yeah, that was a weird way to.
Okay.
Yeah, wow. That's a really, really powerful
Yeah, that's a crazy story.
story.
And the fact that he had the names of the three guys, like his friends that flew with him before, who died before him,
Yeah.
like, and then just to know the name of the ship and like everything, the kind of plane.
Everything.
Like,
Yeah, and
that's
speaking of
trippy.
like the kind of plane, but in one of the other documentaries that I'd seen that was a little longer and more detail, he knew all the like parts of the plane. He would talk to his parents about specific plane parts and things that like they're like we have no idea. In one of them they were talking about a drop tank where he was like making his fake plane. And they're like, what's that? And he was like, well, that's the drop tank. And they were like, how the fuck does he know what a drop tank is? Like, I don't even know what a drop tank is. But apparently,
Yeah,
he
he was
had
like 4 or something
yes,
like
he was
that.
a
Yeah.
little kid and had so much detail about just planes in general, how to fly them, and then knew all the very specific types of planes, you know, that he had flown, and then even to be able to know Natoma name, you know, like all of that. It's so interesting that he had so much detail.
Yeah. Wow, Chid, you're a poet. I didn't know you were such a poet, Chid. It's so beautiful.
Oh my god. You're so funny. Oh, interesting that you've heard that early origins of the Bible had chapters on reincarnation, and later versions they were taken out. So we love how people just take out whatever they feel like. We don't think we want this one on here anymore.
I wouldn't doubt that.
I mean, I think it makes sense, and I could see how it could coincide with Christian belief system. I guess, you know, yeah, because you know, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be like you just go to heaven forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. You know, maybe there's this lovely place, and then you come back and you have more human experiences, and then you know, do your best and try to get back to heaven. Like, I don't see why it has to be eternity. You know, like it just seems kind of silly. It'd be very overpopulated.
Yeah, well, I think the King James version of Revelation basically says that whenever when Jesus returns, he's going to come and he's going to raise all the dead, and then all the souls that have ever walked the planet will be here, and then there will be judgment, and then the ones that have like taken God into their heart will go north, will go to heaven, and then anyone who hasn't will go to hell. So it's like they get divvied up. Then they don't get divvied up right when they die immediately. So that brings in the idea of either purgatory or reincarnation, which maybe reincarnating would be purgatory. Maybe doing this over and over and over is you waiting to
It's an
get
interesting
sent
thought.
on to the next level.
Sure. And you get a chance to redeem yourself. You get a chance to try again, clean slate type of thing, over and over until you get it right. Until you sell your soul to God. That doesn't sound very fun.
Yeah.
But there you go. Oh yeah, choosing potentially
Maybe you get
to come back.
Yeah, a lot of stories recount that too. But and even in this one, the kid said that he chose his parents. Like, so did he choose to come back, or was he going to come back and he was just choosing who he was coming back as?
It's interesting that after all of that he said, "I chose you as parents." That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how any of this shit works. If we actually really do choose who we come back to, or if maybe in some cases you do, in some cases it's random. I don't know, because who would want to be choosing to go into an abusive household or whatever, I don't know. That's a tough one. Who would want to be choosing to be born in a village in Africa where they are starving and can't even drink the water,
Unless it's one of those things like something that you need to learn in order to move on, and that's what's going to either teach you what you need or put you in the place where you need to be to learn whatever it is that you need to learn.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I do think that there are lessons. I think that there's certain things that I think is kind of unique. This is my personal thought on it. That like there isn't any like set of guidelines like, okay, a person, soul, needs to do A, B, C, D, E, then you ascend and you're good. I think that it's specific for the individuals. I think we all have our own lessons and things that we need to learn and overcome, and I don't know how that works at all, but I don't feel like there's a standard thing that everybody has to do to be done, to finally graduate and be done. But I think living on this earth, it's a very unique experience because we get the physical realm and we get to enjoy, food and traveling and seeing the physical world and beauty and love and all these emotions and things that I imagine in straight soul form, that there's not as many tangible things like that to kind of feed our soul and give us these experiences. I think having human experiences it's a very unique thing that we get to have. We get to learn from a lot of these things. I think it's pretty profound.
Yeah, and Benchbox, you might be right. Maybe it is a reward for living a good life of sorts that you get to choose. Or it might just come down to
that's a great choice.
Awareness and the consciousness that you carry with you.
I like that maybe it's a reward. I never thought about it like that, but yeah, maybe for the first 10 times or something you just get chucked in randomly, and then like, all right, you're doing good. Like, what do you want to experience? Who do you want to pick? It's so interesting. And the fact that he said that he seen them at that hotel, but it wasn't when they were like conceiving him, it's when they decided to have him. That's weird.
Yeah.
It's super weird.
Yeah.
Oh. And the parents did a great job. They did a great job listening and helping. Because this shit happens, I'm sure, way more often than you even hear about, with people just dismissing them or chucking them at the church or putting them in, insane asylums and stuff like that because they just don't understand. So I'm really glad that the parents were so
or just chalk it up to
easygoing.
kids' imagination, oh, they have such an active imagination. You know, I don't know where he learns these things, and
Yeah.
move along
People get
rather than asking questions.
dismissed a lot because of that. Oh, they're just a kid.
Yeah.
It's like maybe they're actually picking up on things that you don't know. Kids seeing ghosts and shit like that too.
Yeah.
You know, oh, it's just a bad dream. And you're like, no, I know what I saw. And maybe sometimes the kid was having a bad dream and confusing a dream. But like to just dismiss everything just because they're a child is this is why I hated being a child. And not that my parents just dismissed everything for me, but just in general, you don't have as much credibility as a child. It's just looked at like, oh, whatever, you know, like, okay. Just the world doesn't take you seriously as a child. And it was so frustrating for me as a kid. Oh, I hated it. All I wanted to do was be an adult. That's all I wanted to do. Was be old enough to be fucking taken seriously. And now I'm 42 years old this year, and I still am not taken seriously sometimes. And it fucking sucks. Oh, good night, Joe. I'm sorry that you have to leave us, but I understand it's
gonna get even more
getting
interesting.
late for you. I know, but I'm glad you were at least here for this.
Yeah, and thanks
We
for sharing
adore
your own
you.
tales.
Yes,
Sure.
yeah, absolutely. And I want to get you back on soon. We should do a follow up and talk about your experiences if you would like to share. That would be awesome. All right. Mwah. Sweet dreams, Joe.
Okay, so one of the ones I sent you, talking about my theory of how energy kind of disperses, one of the ones I sent you talks about basically a soul getting thrown into more than one person.
Interesting.
Let's see
Okay.
if we want to do that one.
Yeah, if you think it's a good follow up, that's mine.
Oh, that's probably yours. Well, it's the ones that I sent to you, so
Right.
it would be
Correct.
this one. Oh yeah, the one with me on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I sent it to you because it was a. Oh, you know, it was an animation. I may not have sent it. Hold on.
okay.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Please hold. I thought I sent it to myself. Maybe I voted it out.
Is that completely relevant in a linear fashion to what we just covered?
I mean, not in like full on linear, but I was just thinking about we were talking about soul journey versus energy being dispersed, and this one it's a reincarnation into twins, and they both get pieces.
Whoa. Interesting. Well, I'm intrigued. Let's check it out. Yeah, that James Houston story, man, that's a really good one. I have like two specifically that are like my favorite kid reincarnation stories, and that's one of them.
Yeah, that one's one of my
It's
favorites
so
too.
good.
It's super interesting.
That's cool that he was like, "Hey, can you send me that painting that our mom made?" You know, like what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's nice that you got to meet the sister that she was actually still alive. I mean, that was a long time ago, you know? That's
Yeah,
like
right.
Old school. And it's kind of cool that he's just like, hey, you know, I'll answer questions if people want to ask a question. But,
Yeah.
you know, like, I'm not just trying to talk about it constantly all the time, too.
Yeah.
Ever have
That, this is here. Is it animation?
Yeah. it's
Okay.
animation.
Okay. All right, let's check this out.
Deja vu. You know, that feeling that what you're currently doing is something that you already did before, only the memory of it just comes to you now in the present. It's a common occurrence that scientists still can't explain, and one experienced by millions of Americans every year. Sometimes it can be unsettling. Other times it's just a mild curiosity. But now imagine having deja vu not about something you're currently doing, but about an entire life lived. John and Florence Pollock were a working-class couple from Britain who were in no overt regard extraordinary by any means. Soon after getting married, the young couple had a daughter, Joanna, born in 1946, followed 5 years later by a second daughter, Jacqueline. Joanna, as the older sister, was closely bonded to Jacqueline and would mother her constantly. The children grew up as normal, happy children, though Joanna would often be prone to a particularly unsettling statement. The normally happy little girl would sometimes stop what she was doing and muse aloud, "I will never be a lady," implying that she would never grow up. At 3 years old, Jacqueline suffered an accident and fell into an empty bucket, earning her a gash on her forehead right over her right eye and close to her nose. The gash became a permanent scar, especially noticeable in the cold weather. The girl also had a prominent birthmark on the left side of her body at the waist. These details would become incredibly important just a few years later. On the morning of May 7th, 1957, Joanna, age 11, Jacqueline, age 6, and a friend were walking to church. As the children walked together, they were blissfully unaware that just down the road, a mentally disturbed woman was barreling down on them. That woman had her children taken away from her, and in an attempt to commit suicide, she took large quantities of aspirin and phenobarbital, a medicine used to treat epilepsy. The large doses of medicine had not killed her, but rather completely impaired her mental state, and totally out of control, the woman barreled down the road and swerved onto the sidewalk straight at the children. Because of a wall next to the sidewalk that the two girls and their friend were on, they were unable to escape the oncoming car and were killed instantly. Their father, John, was utterly distraught at the death of his two daughters and believed that they had died as a punishment from God after he had prayed for proof of reincarnation. This was because John held a very peculiar view for a Christian, that sometimes God reincarnated people, not as in returning from the dead, but completely reincarnated individuals into different bodies. John's wife did not believe this, and their marriage nearly ended when John insisted that God would return the girls as twins. Later that year, Florence became pregnant again, and this fueled John's belief that his twin girls would be returned to him. Florence, still extremely uncomfortable with the idea, utterly rejected this belief, and after careful observation, the family doctor predicted a single birth. This was based on observations on a palpitation of the fetus as well as its heartbeat, and the fact that neither John or Florence had a history of twins in their family. On October 4th, 1958, though, incredibly and unexpectedly, Florence gave birth to twin girls, Jillian and Jennifer. Even more incredibly, Jennifer was born with a birthmark that closely resembled Jacqueline's scar above her eye, and a second birthmark in the exact same place as Jacqueline's own on her hip. Soon, rumors of the twin girls' reincarnation began to circulate about town and even made national press. A few years later, the story of the twins drew the attention of psychologist Ian Stevenson, who began an investigation into the matter. What he uncovered was shocking. At first, the twin girls behaved no differently than other young children, until they turned 3. At that time, their parents gave them a box of toys that had belonged to Joanna and Jacqueline, and Jillian claimed a doll for herself that had belonged to Joanna, and Jennifer claimed a doll that had belonged to Jacqueline. The little 3-year-old twins told their parents that the toys had been a gift from Santa Claus, which is exactly what John and his wife had told Joanna and Jacqueline when they had originally bought them years earlier. Further, Jillian spotted a toy clothes ringer and reached for it, saying, "There's my toy ringer." The ringer had also previously belonged to Joanna. The eeriness, however, would only build. The twins' mother would often overhear the twins discussing details of the accident that had killed their deceased siblings, with Jillian once holding Jennifer's head saying, "Blood's coming out of your eyes. That's where the car hit you." Indeed, when John went to identify the bodies of the dead children, Jacqueline's head had been bandaged right above her eyes. At a later time, Jillian pointed to Jennifer's forehead birthmark and said that was where Jennifer had been hurt when she fell in a bucket. Years earlier, while helping her husband run a milk delivery business, Florence had been seen to wear a large smock as she helped John. She had stopped wearing the smock when she found new work shortly after the death of her daughters, and had put it away in a closet. Once, John put on the smock to protect his clothes as he did some house painting, and Jennifer asked him why he was wearing Mommy's coat. Dr. Stevenson would go on to find other disturbingly similar behavior between the twins and their dead sisters, which included a strong aversion to traffic, with the girls saying that the cars were going to kill them. Jillian also liked to mother Jennifer, the same as Joanna had mothered Jacqueline, and both twins looked up to their maternal grandmother as a mother figure, as Joanna and Jacqueline had done while growing up because their mother was busy working. Later in life, Dr. Stevenson would have the girls' DNA tested and discovered that they were monozygotic twins, meaning they came from the same egg. This, he claimed, meant that because the girls were identical genetically, Jennifer's birthmarks, which so closely resembled Jacqueline's scar and birthmark, couldn't be explained. Then, suddenly at around age 5, the memories of their deceased sisters completely ceased. Dr. Stevenson, who maintained lifelong contact with the family until his death, interviewed the girls again at age 20, and both girls expressed skepticism about reincarnation. In 1981, though, Jillian suddenly began experiencing what she called inner visions, and perfectly described the house, garden, lawns, and orchards of the family home in Wickham, during which Joanna had grown up until age 4. Jillian, though, had never been there herself. To date, the Pollock twins case remains one of the strongest for the phenomenon of reincarnation, yet it's not without serious faults. For starters, Dr. Stevenson himself was not present for any of the alleged behaviors or statements that mirrored past behaviors or memories of the deceased girls, and instead had them relayed to him by the family. Given John Pollock's strong belief in reincarnation, he would hardly make for an unbiased witness. Skeptics argue that the girls could have simply learned the details of their deceased sisters' lives by overhearing adults talking about them, and may have turned it into a game of sorts. This would explain their loss of interest as they grew older, and the sudden end of these past life memories. However, the presence of Jennifer's birthmarks remains a thorny issue to try and explain away rationally. The Pollock twins were hardly the first possible reincarnated twins, however, and the most famous case before the Pollocks was that of Burmese twins Mongyi and Mongye. These two twin boys soon took to calling themselves Mong San-nin and Ma-gwin when they learned to talk, much to the shock of their parents, who recognized the names as those of a couple that they had known but who had died. The children reported memories of the village that the deceased couple had lived in, Okshitgon, and to test the veracity of their memories, the parents took them to visit. Incredibly, the twins recognized the village and displayed an intimate knowledge of the layout of its streets, the houses, and even the people who lived there. They even remembered borrowing 2 rupees from a local woman, and when she asked about the debt, she confirmed that the deceased couple had in fact borrowed this money from her and died before repaying it. Closer to home, the most stunning case of reincarnation comes to us from recent years. In 2000, a young American boy named James Leininger fell in love with planes, especially World War II planes, after visiting a flight museum. Incredibly though, shortly after his visit, James, who wasn't yet 2 years old, displayed a knowledge of plane facts that stunned his parents. Taking him back to the plane museum, his parents reported that James began to have nightmares, and he would repeatedly shout, "Airplane crash on fire! Little man can't get out!" As James grew a little older, his parents asked him about the bad dreams. James said that they weren't dreams at all, but rather memories. James told his parents that they were his memories and that he had been shot down by the Japanese. He even identified the plane he flew as a Navy Corsair. At 2.5 years old, James told his parents that he had flown his plane from a big boat, calling it the Natoma. Incredibly, the U.S. Navy had in fact operated an escort carrier off Japan, where James claimed he had been shot down, by the name of USS Natoma Bay. As Christmas neared, James's father was looking at a book that he was planning on gifting his own father called The Battle for Iwo Jima in 1945. As James's father flipped through the book, James pointed to a picture of the island showing Mount Suribachi and said, "That's where my airplane was shot down." As James got older, he began drawing battle scenes which involved airplanes, and would sign them James III. When asked why, he said it was because he was the third James. Eventually, James's father got in contact with a veteran from the Natoma Bay and attended a reunion of surviving Natoma Bay crew. There he learned that toward the end of the war, on one of the ship's last missions at the Battle of Iwo Jima, a single pilot had gone missing and was presumed shot down by the Japanese, a 21-year-old named James M. Houston Jr. Even more incredibly, though, the young James even gave the name of one of his wingmen, Jack Larson, who confirmed the events that led to James Houston Jr.'s death. As young James's case was investigated, he began to give details about James Houston Jr.'s family life, which prompted James's parents to contact any surviving relatives of Houston's. They found his sister, who, after being told of the details James spoke of, confirmed many of them as factual. Skeptics who investigated the James Leininger case have been hard-pressed to come up with good explanations for the young boy's alleged past life memories. Today,
call attention to.
They
end on him, so it doesn't go anymore. But yeah, I had it wrong. Whenever they talked about the birthmarks from before, I thought they said that one girl had one of the birthmarks and the other girl had the other birthmark.
Oh, I see.
And they were both having memories from her, so I got mixed up on that.
Okay.
But yeah, the twins.
Oh, that's very interesting.
It's super interesting that he was praying to God for proof of it, and then his girls got killed, and then had twins.
Yeah, and then he kept saying
memories.
there's going to be twins, and they're like, it's not twins.
The doctors are like, it's not twins.
And then
Who
it was twins. That's super crazy.
Weird.
Yeah.
Pretty weird.
That's a cool story.
Yeah.
I liked that one.
Yeah, I hadn't heard any other ones about twins, and those two, like the two stories in there with the boys too, in that village, being able to, like, remembering the names of people that lived there and everything was really interesting. But I hadn't heard any other stories about twin.
That's neat that the twins had each other to be able to bounce those things off of each other, you know? Otherwise, it's just one person recalling this whole thing and just kind of hoping people believe them, you know? It's nice to have somebody else that understands. It's so crazy that those memories fade so distinctly
Yeah.
when they get to a certain age where, you know, those twins were like, we don't even believe in it. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
And then the one started having visions of a place she'd never been to before, and it was their old house.
Yeah.
That's weird.
That is super strange.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
I like that. That was pretty good. That's neat that it just recapped a few different things
Yeah.
throughout it. I like that. Actually, speaking of like recapping a few different things, there are some little compilations.
Yeah, Benchbox and Shadow. You guys are talking about Deja Vu in there. Yeah, Deja Vu is a weird one. But Shadow, it stopped happening, so you only had it when you were younger. You haven't really had it anymore. That's interesting.
Interesting. It is very random for me. I would not say that I have deja vu often, but every now and then. And I don't know, it throws me off a lot of times when it happens. Because sometimes it's just like a, whoa, I feel like I did this before. But I've had, I've talked about it, I think, previously, way back on the podcast, was what I kind of called bad deja vu. I don't like that. It's like I'll have a deja vu moment, and then I can feel what's coming next, like the energy of what's coming next, which is different than just regular deja vu where I'm like, whoa, trippy, I feel like I did this. But there's been a couple times where I've had deja vu, and then I've been like, oh no, something not good is coming. Like I can feel what's next, something
Yeah.
not good.
That's what Benchbox was saying, is sometimes it can be a warning.
Yes.
Interesting.
Bingebox, have you had it happen to where you've kind of had that like bad deja vu feeling and you feel like something was coming that you should be aware of specifically? Because it's interesting. I'm curious if so.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't like that. It really it stresses me out when I'm like, oh God, here we go. Now I can feel something's not right. Something bad is coming, but I don't know what it is. It's really strange, and it's, you know, the deja vu is always like just such random things. It doesn't seem like it's anything specific.
Yeah.
You know, like why this moment? Why I'm eating this cheese? Like why is eating this cheese triggering something? You know, like it's not something like profound or anything like that.
Yeah.
Oh, you said yes, most of them. Oh man,
Really?
dang.
Okay.
Man, it's gotta make you wonder.
Yeah.
Got to make you wonder. I had such an intense bad deja vu when I was, I don't know, maybe 21 or something like that, 22, something in that range, that I was at work when it happened, and I told my manager, who is also a friend of mine, but I was like, I need to say this out loud because I have a very serious feeling right now that something bad is coming, and I just need to like document it. Like I just need to have that out there because I really feel like something not good is coming. And I was right, and it really sucked because I wish that it was not the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that one, I was working at a pizza shop at the time, and I had a really weird deja vu, and it struck me where I was like, oh shit, something horrible is going to happen. And it's a pizza shop, so the phone rings all the time. I mean, people are constantly making orders, so when the phone rings, it normally wouldn't make you be like, but it was like, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes or so after I had that horrible feeling, and I was really just trying to shake it, but I couldn't, and the phone rang, and I was like, oh shit, like, please don't be for me. Like, please just be a pizza order. Don't be for me. Somebody was like, Sammy, the phone's for you. I was like, oh no. And I didn't know who it was. It could have been anybody at that moment. I was like, I don't know who it is. And it was one of my very dear friends whose brother had OD'd and was clinging to life. And she called me while I was at work, because before, you know, I don't know, all the cell phones and stuff, and she was just freaking out. And I ended up going to Florida to go be there as a support for her, and was actually in the room when her brother died. So it was like somehow I felt it coming. It was crazy. And there's a little more to it too, but that's like the basic gist of it. But it just felt so doomy. It felt like impending doom. It was horrible situation. Yeah. But I documented it with my friend. I was like, I need you to know. I know this sounds totally crazy right now, but like something fucking bad's gonna happen. And a hearse had drove by right after that too. As I was standing there, like, oh, something's not right. Like, I do not feel right. Something bad is coming. And a hearse went by, and I was like, it struck me. I didn't know why, but I was just like, oh, no, thank you, hearse. Keep going. You know, like it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's trippy.
Not a good one. So yeah, there's some interesting deja vu things that happen out there, and it's unexplainable. So did we dream of it beforehand, or is it just like a moment in time where something shifts and changes to where we can pick up on that? Like I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I think one of the best like scientific theories I've ever heard for deja vu that I like for just regular deja vu, nothing like that. That's a whole different situation. Any kind of premonition like that is a completely different situation. But as far as just like why deja vu happens whenever you just feel like you've been there before, there's a theory that like if you get super relaxed and you're breathing lighter, basically, that you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain, and it kind of throws your brain off, and your brain starts to just register things as a memory instead of as something that is happening presently. Your brain just starts to see it as a memory, which I like as far as a scientific explanation for things.
Sure.
But that doesn't explain premonitions and being, warned about certain things. Like, so it's like we need to keep looking into the deja vu thing because that doesn't cover all of it.
It doesn't. But it does cover some of it, I'm sure. I'm sure that is a very logical explanation for the majority of times that people feel like they've experienced this before. But premonition is a whole different ball of wax.
Yep.
And that was a really weird one, and there were so many different parts to that situation too. I was really opened up to some shit at that point. Like I not even specifically, I wasn't trying, but I was definitely way open to things, and that shit got me. That got me pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Trippy.
yep. So there's that. That's pretty crazy. Let's see. There is. Let's see. Let me check out this one here. I think is there a video in this one, or is this one just an article? Okay, let me try to find the right one here. Okay, this is 4 strange kids who remember their reincarnation. Or the 6. Oh, I got a 6 and a 4. Let's do the 6.
6 or 4?
We're going to do 6.
The thought of reincarnation terrifies some people and pleases others. Personally, I hate the thought of having to relive an entire life all over again. It not only scares me, but it's mentally exhausting just to think about it. Judging by some of our stories, you can end up in the same culture, doing the same things. So where's life's lesson in that? It makes it seem that I'm going back onto a treadmill that I cannot get off of. We've discovered 6 astonishing reincarnation tales, some of which will give you hope, while others are surrounded by disturbing circumstances. Number 6, Romy Crease, Iowa, USA. Romy was born in 1977 to Barry and Bonnie Crease of Des Moines, Iowa. Her parents were devout Catholics and so were completely unprepared for what happened when she began to talk about her past life. She would talk about her previous life as Jo Williams. She'd insisted that she'd grown up in a red brick house in Charles City, a town 140 miles from Des Moines. She said that she'd married a woman named Sheila and they had 3 children. Romy claimed that both Joe and Sheila had been killed in a motorcycle accident that Romy described in considerable detail. She also feared motorbikes and would have a panic when one zoomed past. She was also able to recall other incidents from Joe's life, where he'd started a fire in the home and his mother, Louise Williams, had burned her hand trying to put out the fire. Romy also claimed that his previous mother complained of a pain in her right leg, which she'd also injured in the fire. Romy often asked to be taken back to Charles City because she wanted to reassure her previous mother, who he called Mother Williams, that everything was okay. They eventually visited Charles City, where Romy insisted they buy Mother Williams some blue flowers, as they were her favourite, and that when they arrive at the house, they must not use the front door but go to the back door. After checking the phone book, they found a Louise Williams listed, and Romy was able to direct them. When they arrived at the house, to their amazement, there was a note on the front door requesting them to use the back door. An elderly woman answered holding a crutch with a bandage on her right leg. Louise Williams was ecstatic to receive the flowers and said she'd never had any flowers since her son Joe had given her some many years before. Romy then told her everything about her past life as Joe, where Louise Williams could not believe how she knew all of these facts and confirmed everything Romy had said, saying, "Where did this girl get all this information? I don't know anyone living in Des Moines." She explained that she and Joe had lived in a red brick house, as Romy had said, but this house had been destroyed by a tornado that had damaged much of Charles City 10 years ago. Joe helped us build this house, and he insisted we keep the front door shut during the winter. Louise Williams was able to confirm many details of Romy's narrative about Joe, including his marriage to Sheila, their 3 children, the names of other relatives, and the fire in the home in which she had burned her hand. She was also able to verify Romy's precise description of the motorcycle accident in 1975, 2 years before Romy was born. Louise showed her a family album where Romy was able to identify everyone in the photos. Despite this confirmation, neither she nor Romy's parents were prepared to accept the possibility that her daughter was the reincarnation of Joe Williams. "I don't know how to explain it, and I find it hard to believe," observed Romy's mother, "but I do know my daughter isn't lying." Number 5.
Wow, that was
Courtney
really
Porosco,
intense.
Louisiana, USA. When Courtney was 3 years old, she was sitting at the table, scribbling on some paper, and casually said to her mother, "I miss my Grandma Alice so much." Her mother then said, "Who is Grandma Alice?" Courtney replied, "Well, she is my grandma." Then her mother replied, "You already have 2 grandmas, and neither of them are Alice." Courtney said, "Well, I know that, but Alice was my grandma before I was Courtney." She claimed that Grandma Alice and her grandfather had looked after her when their parents had died. Unfortunately, her grandma had died when she was 16. Her mother then said, "Well, I'm glad you're with me now," whereas Courtney replied, "Well, yes, I know that you love me, and that is why Grandma Alice had recommended you for me as my new parents on Earth." Courtney then talked more about her previous life, describing that she'd lived near hills where the trees lost their leaves before winter and that the winters were very cold, and not like here in Louisiana. Their house had no indoor toilet, and in winter it was freezing to go to the toilet outdoors. Courtney said that when you first arrive in heaven, you're allowed to rest for a while. Then you have to work and what you want to learn in your next life on Earth. Then you choose a family that will help you learn and what you need. Her mother asked her whether she'd met God, and Courtney replied that yes, she'd only seen God with her soul. Her mother could not believe what Courtney had said from a child so young. And where did she learn about such things when none of these subjects had ever been discussed at home? Number 4. Nekati Unataskadin Adana, Turkey. The Islamic faith is the main religion in Turkey. where officially no one believes in reincarnation, even though some Islamic sects either partially or completely acknowledge that reincarnation exists. One case is about a boy from Adana, Turkey, called Nekati Unlataskadin. As soon as Nekati was able to speak, he talked about his past life. He said that his name was Nise Budak and that he lived in Mersin, Turkey, and his wife's name was Zira, and they had many children. His best friend was Ahmed Renkli, who he would regularly visit with his son Najat. Tragically, on one occasion, they had a serious argument where Ahmed stabbed him to death. After much prompting from Nekati, his parents decided to take him to visit Mersin, which was 100 kilometres from their home in Adana. He was not only able to find the house he once lived in, but also recognise his previous wife Zara, and was able to identify and name all of his children except for the youngest, whose name he did not know because he'd been born after his death. He was also able to answer all of the questions that were put to him. Nekati also claimed that he'd had an argument with his previous wife Zara, where he'd stabbed her in the knee and pointed to the part of her knee that he'd injured. When Zara lifted her skirt, it revealed a large scar in the exact spot that he had pointed to. It was also confirmed that Nikib's friend Ahmed had indeed stabbed him to death, where Nekati now had birthmarks where he had been stabbed in the previous life. Number 3, William George Jr., Alaska, USA. In 1949, William George Sr. of the Tlingit tribe was an Alaskan fisherman and said to his son Reginald that, "When I die, I will come back as your son. When I am reborn, you will recognise me because I will have birthmarks like the ones I have now," where he pointed to 2 prominent birthmarks on his body. He then handed his son a gold watch given to him by his mother, and he then said, "Keep this watch for me for when I return as your son," whereas he took the watch home to his wife, who placed it in a jewel box where it stayed for the next 5 years. In August 1949, William George Sr. disappeared from the boat which he was captain, and searchers never recovered his body. Short time later, Reginald's wife became pregnant and gave birth on May the 5th, 1950, barely 9 months after his father disappeared. Apparently, during her labour, William George Sr. had appeared in her dream, saying he was waiting to see his son. When the child was born, they found he had birthmarks identical to the ones on William George Sr., just as he'd predicted to his son. So they named the child after his father, William George Jr. As William George grew up, they observed behaviour similar to his father's. However, one amazing incident was that when William George Sr. was young, he'd severely injured his ankle in a basketball accident and walked with a distinctive limp on his right foot. The young boy had developed the same limp on his right foot, even though he had never injured it. As the young boy matured, members of the family noted that he had similarities of facial appearance and also had his posture and an amazing knowledge of boats and fishing. He knew the best places to fish and knew how to work the nets, but had a fear of water. Other unusual observations was calling his great aunt his sister and his uncles and aunts his brothers and sisters. One day in the bedroom, his mother had opened the jewellery box and had spread everything out onto the bed, including the gold watch that William George Sr. had handed to his son. William George Jr. then walked into the room, saw the watch on the bed stating, "Hey, that's my watch." Both parents swore they had never mentioned the watch to their son. Number 2, Reena Gupta, New Delhi, India. When Hindu girl Reena Gupta was only 2 years old, she told her mother that she had a husband, a very bad man who had murdered her. Reena's behaviour became even stranger, where she would toddle out onto the balcony of her New Delhi home and stare into the street crowds, searching and always searching. When out in the family car, she was constantly on the lookout for someone. When asked what she was looking for, she would say, "I'm looking for my husband and my children." Rena then began to criticise the way her mother cooked and cleaned the house. On one occasion, Rena wandered off during a market outing, only to explain later to her worried mother that she had followed a woman who used to come to my house. The past life connection wouldn't go away, and to her mother's annoyance, her daughter continued to express affection for her children, as well as anguish at her enforced separation from them. One day, a woman called Vijendra Kaur, a teaching colleague of Rena's mother, had heard about a Sikh family in another part of the city whose story appeared to match Rena's. Her inquiries led to Sardar Kishan Singh and his wife, parents of the late Gurdeep Kaur, who had been murdered by her husband on June the 21st, 1961. After being informed about what Rena had been saying and intrigued by a possible link with the dead daughter, the couple called on the Gupta family. At the time of their visit, Rena was asleep, but on waking, she looked up at the Singhs and her face lit up with smiles, and she said, "They are my mother and father." The next day, the Singhs brought Swarna, Gurdeep's younger sister, to see Rena, who immediately called her by a nickname Sano. Later, Rena visited Kishnan Singh's home, where she recognised photographs. Her previous husband, Sajit Singh, the killer of Gurdeep, heard of Rena's claims and decided to pay the family a visit himself. Rena, however, had no wish to see him. "He will kill me again," she said. Shazit Singh had been jailed for life for murdering his wife and her brother, but freed after 10 years for good behaviour. When they did finally meet in 1975, Rena was 9 years old. However, nothing could allay her fears. Only with the greatest reluctance would she pose, perching uneasily on the armrest of Sajit Singh's chair, with the man who claimed was her murderer. When Sajit Singh tried to put his arm around her, she tore herself away. Then Rena met her 4 children from her previous life, 3 daughters and 1 son, and greeted them as joyfully as she had Gurdeep's mother, father and sister. Number 1, Jeremy Anderson, Oklahoma, USA.
That's horrible.
A 2-year-old boy from Wacomis, Oklahoma, called Jeremy Anderson, insisted he was Jimmy and not Jeremy. Jeremy was the son of Nancy and Ron Anderson. About 100 miles from there, at a cemetery in Takawa, there is a tombstone with the engraved name James L. Hauser, born on August 22nd, 1952, and died on August 12, 1967. Jeremy Anderson claimed he had been that teenager in a previous life. Jimmy Hauser was raised by his aunt in Takawa and was killed in a traffic accident on a hot August night in 1967. He was 15 years old. One day in 1980, when Jeremy was only 5 years old, he was leafing through a picture book with his grandmother when he spotted a Ford wagon, and then said to his grandmother, "Hey, that's the wagon that hit me." He then said that he'd been killed and was angry with the man who drove the wagon. One day, he was talking to his grandfather, who was lying in bed with a bad back. Jeremy said, "What's wrong, Grandpa? Is your back killing you?" His Gram said, "No, it's not killing me, but it really hurts." Jeremy replied, "Well, my back got hurt once and it killed me." In April 1980, Jimmy was taken to the scene of the accident. The boy immediately recognised the area and showed how he fell out of the car during the collision. "I flew through the air like a bullet and it was like a bomb," he said. According to a police report, Jimmy Hauser and his friend, 16-year-old Kevin Lucas, rode their Buick at over 80 miles per hour. It was claimed that they'd collided the intersection with an old Ford wagon. Their car flew several dozen metres away. Kevin Lucas was seriously injured and Jimmy died at the scene of the accident.
Poor kid. Wow, those were some good ones.
Crazy.
That was
I hadn't heard of any of those.
no, those were new ones to me too. That's really detailed shit too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa,
That was
especially
pretty
the
detailed.
chick that had to go take a photo with her murderer.
Yeah, that's messed up. That's pretty messed up.
That's crazy.
I did hear there was another story of a guy that was killed by a dude, and then the kid that remembered the reincarnation, like who he was before, was able to pinpoint the guy.
Yes.
And the guy ended up going to prison for
Yep,
it.
and say this is where my bones are buried.
Yeah.
And this
yeah.
is the he stabbed me, or it was an axe.
Yeah.
He hit me with the axe.
Mm-hmm.
This is where my bones are buried. This is who did it, and it was like a town that was like down the way. It
Yeah.
was, like yeah.
Called him out from beyond the grave.
Yeah, that's
and
a
the guy
really-
got put in jail for it. Like, wow.
That's a pretty crazy one. I think
Yeah.
you'd get away with it. And
Mhm.
didn't get away with it. But yeah, that's
trippy.
really interesting. Like remembered who murdered her, and then like all the children and everything. Like to be able to recall all of that information.
Yeah.
That'd be so trippy as a family member to have somebody show up randomly.
Yeah.
And be like, "Hi, I'm a 7-year-old child, and I'm your reincarnated son or whatever." Like, what
Yeah.
the fuck?
Or wife or anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, to be able to name all the kids and everything. Like,
Yes.
Trippy. Oh, that's freaking.
Yeah.
Shit, I think it's the same wagon from Harry and the Hendersons too.
Oh yeah.
I think that was the same one.
And similar to the one in Poltergeist also.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
But wow, yeah, that's a pretty interesting
Yeah.
story where he gave the entire account of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was a pretty cool list of stories there. I like that. And then there's a video of 4 of them. So let's see. Oh yeah, you see those new emotes? Hell yeah. Bam, we got new ones.
4 new emotes. We were tricked. We thought we had 5 new emotes, but it was only 4.
I know. We thought it was 5. But I really like this one. And this works out perfectly for our subject matter today. Dead.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that one too.
It's great.
It turned out super cool.
It turned out
The
so
little winged
good.
skull turned out awesome.
I love it.
I'm for it.
Dead, dead, dead. We talk about a lot of dead things on our show, so it's going to come in very handy.
Yeah, definitely.
So cool. I'm glad that you like those. We got a Mod Love one, so feel free to chuck that all over the place. It's great.
Yeah,
Okay.
throw that all over everywhere.
Let's see.
There
Let's
is
check
so
out
much
this.
evidence for the proof of reincarnation
know if this will
that
be
it is
like-
really mind-boggling.
Any repeats or not?
Reincarnation does not appear to give us any answers about the meaning of life, but certainly leaves us with many questions. To some people, the thought of reincarnation is comforting, but to others, it's as if existence is one huge treadmill that we cannot seem to get off of. We all like to believe that if you commit horrific sins in this life, you will be punished. And if you have been a good person, you will be rewarded. But there appears to be no evidence of this, and we are left none the wiser.
I don't know
The
if
following
I've seen
are
videos.
4 more incredible reincarnation stories told by ordinary people leading ordinary lives.
Yeah, I'm actually not going to repeat the same one. The same show. I really enjoyed the last one. It's a weird world.
Binge box. New weirdos.
Number
Hooray.
4, John McConnell, United States. John was a retired police officer who had been very close to his family and had frequently told his daughter Doreen, "No matter what happens, I will always take care of you." In 1992, he worked as a security guard, and one night after finishing his shift, stopped at an electronics store and saw 2 men robbing it and pulled out his gun. One of the thieves behind the counter shot at John, and he was hit 6 times. The bullets had sliced through his left lung, his heart, and a main artery. He later died. 5 years after John died, Doreen gave birth to a son she called William. Unfortunately, William was born with serious heart and lung issues and had to undergo surgery. William was born with birth defects very similar to the fatal wounds suffered by his grandfather. When William was old enough, he began talking about his grandfather's life. When he was 3 years old, his mother was trying to work quietly in her study, and William was misbehaving, She told him, "Behave or I will spank you." William replied, "Mum, when you were a little girl and I was your daddy, you were naughty and I never hit you."
Damn.
Later, William began to talk more about the life of his grandfather, and Doreen felt strangely comforted by the idea that her father had returned to take care of her just as he said he would. William then started to talk about his death in his last life and said that people were shooting during the incident. Another time, William said to his mother, "When you were a little girl and I was your daddy, what was my cat's name?" And she replied, "You mean Maniac? No, not that one. The white one." "Oh, you mean Boston," his mother said. "Yeah," William said. "I used to call him Boss, right?" Well, that was correct. The family had two cats named Maniac and Boston, and only her father referred to the white one as Boss. On another occasion, his mother asked William if he remembered anything about the time before he was born. He said that he died on a Thursday and went to heaven, and that he saw animals there and also talked to God. He said, "I told God I was ready to come back, and I got born on a Tuesday." Doreen was amazed, as he had yet to learn about days of the week. Doreen started to notice other similarities between her father and William, where they both loved books, and when they visited William's grandmother, he would spend hours looking at books in his grandfather's study, and he even had his grandfather's mannerisms. William was also good at putting things together and could talk non-stop, just like his grandfather. But William especially reminded Doreen of her father when he tells her, "Don't worry, Mum, I'll take care of you." William would often talk about the period between lives and told his mother, "When you die, you don't go right to heaven, you go to different levels." He said that animals are reborn as well as humans, and that animals he saw in heaven did not bite or scratch. Although Doreen's father had been a practicing Catholic, he believed in reincarnation and said that he would like to take care of animals in his next life. William said that when he grows up, he will be an animal doctor and will take care of large animals at a zoo. Number 3, Hanan Mansour, Lebanon. Hanan was born in Lebanon in the 1930s. When she was 20, she married Farouk Mansour, who came from a wealthy Lebanese family. The couple had 2 daughters named Leila and Galada. Shortly after having a second daughter, Hanan developed a heart problem, and her doctors advised her not to have any more children. However, she did not heed the doctor's warning and had a third child, a son, in 1962. In 1963, Hanan's health started to deteriorate and she started to talk about dying. Hanan's husband Farouk said that Hanan told them that she was going to be reincarnated. This was 2 years before her death. When she was 36, Hanan travelled to Richmond, Virginia to have heart surgery. She tried to telephone her daughter Leila before the operation but couldn't get through. Hanan died of complications the day after surgery. 10 days after Hanan died, a child called Suzanne Garnham was born. Suzanne's mother told Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist from the University of Virginia and an authority on reincarnation, that shortly before Suzanne's birth, she dreamed she was going to have a baby girl. She said that she'd met a woman and we kissed and hugged. She said the woman was about 40 and said, "I am going to come to you." Later, when she saw Hanan's picture, she thought it looked identical to the woman in her dream. Suzanne's mother went on to give birth to a baby girl. One day when Suzanne was only 18 months of age, she picked up the phone and said over and over, "Hello, Leila. Hello, Leila," again and again. The family had no idea who Leila was. As Suzanne got older, she was able to explain that Leila was one of her children in her previous life, and she was not Suzanne, but Hanan. The family asked, "Who is Hanan?" Suzanne replied, "I am still too young, but when I am older, I will tell you." As she got older, she was able to name her children in her previous life and the name of her husband, Farouk. She was also able to name her parents, her brothers, and even 13 names of her relatives in that previous life. Suzanne's parents decided to try and locate their daughter's past life family. Inquiries were then made in the town where the Mansours lived. However, word had got around where the Mansours had heard about the case and decided to visit Suzanne and her family. The Mansours were initially sceptical about the girl's claims, but became believers when Suzanne identified all of Hanan's relatives and accurately named them. Suzanne also told them that prior to her heart surgery, Hanan had given her jewels to her brother Hercule in Virginia, and that Hanan instructed her brother to divide the jewelry among her daughters. This was later verified. When Suzanne was 5, she would call Farouk 3 times a day, and when her family visited the Mansours, Suzanne would sit on Farouk's lap and rest her head against his chest. Even when she was 25 years of age, Suzanne would still telephone Farouk. Number 2, Kendra Carter, United States.
When she was 21.
Kendra
25.
lived in Florida, and when she was 4 years old, her mother took her to her first swimming lesson. When Kendra met her swimming instructor, she immediately jumped into the instructor's lap and started acting lovingly towards her. Kendra then developed a loving attachment to the swimming instructor named Ginger. The child then talked about Ginger all the time, and then began saying that she'd been a baby in Ginger's tummy. Kendra's mother eventually found out from Ginger that she'd had an abortion 9 years before Kendra was born, when she was unmarried, sick, and dealing with anorexia. Kendra was usually a withdrawn child, but every time she saw Ginger, she was bubbly and happy. Time was set aside for them to be together because Kendra's wish to be with Ginger had become very intense. Then her mother and Ginger had a falling out, and Kendra was unable to visit Ginger. Because of this, Kendra would not eat, slept a lot, and became depressed. After 4 months, Kendra was able to visit Ginger again, and she quickly recovered. Kendra's mother decided to buy a book about reincarnation to find out more about her daughter's strange behaviour. But she also felt uneasy and guilty about buying the book, as it went against all of her beliefs of a conservative Christian church, which did not accept the idea that reincarnation was a natural process in life.
How dare you try to learn about things?
It's strange that a child believed she had once lived before, though a very short life, yet her mother had no such beliefs due to her religious upbringing, so it is obvious that Kendra's belief was definitely not influenced by her mother. So where did Kendra get her beliefs from, as she appears to have been born with them? How did Kendra remember this past life with her previous mother when she had only existed in her womb for a couple of months before the abortion? Number 1, Diane Williams, Great Britain. Diane's grandmother, Nanny Wyatt, died on the 4th of October, 1974, and for many years she mourned her passing. It was not until her 3rd child was born on the 4th of May 1975 that she started to come to terms with her grandmother's death. She called her child Kelly, and when she was 2 years old, was able to recall stories of her mother's childhood that left her totally stunned. One day, Diane's mother, Sister Pam, was visiting and picked up Kelly and placed her on her lap. Kelly then said, "Do you remember when you used to sit on my lap like this?" Diane and her auntie both laughed, believing it was just childhood fantasy. But then the child continued saying, "I used to comb your hair," and described in detail the style that Pam had worn, which was a Cleopatra look of the early 1960s. Other than the hairstyle, where did Kelly learn the name Cleopatra? The 2-year-old then went on to describe the type of dress that she had bought for Pam, which was white with red dots, which again was true. Now Diane and her auntie started to take notice at what Kelly was saying, as she was now describing things from the past that were totally accurate. Diane was now starting to notice her daughter's mannerisms, which were identical to her great-grandmother's. When Kelly sat down in an armchair, she would place her child's handbag on the floor between the leg and the chaired leg, which was exactly as her great-grandmother would regularly do when visiting. As Kelly got older, she started describing in detail the types of Victorian clothing she'd worn in the past, even though she had never seen any pictures. Whenever she spoke about her great-grandmother, it was always in the first person, as if she is there herself, and used phrases that were now out of fashion. On another occasion, she described in detail the house she used to live in, along with the types of furniture. When Kelly's grandmother died, she comforted her mother, saying, "It's okay, she is happy and with her family." She spoke with a maturity and a knowing for someone so young. One day, an old friend of Diane's visited and were discussing what happened on a certain date when they were teenagers. Kelly then said, "I know what year it was. It was when we had a plague of ladybirds." Her mother's friend was shocked, asking,
Ladybird plague.
"How did she know about the plague of ladybirds?" Then Kelly added that I can even describe what dresses you wore, and then went on to describe the fashion that her mother wore as a teenager in the late 1950s.
Wow.
They then discussed the Falklands War, which was happening at that time. And Kelly again interrupted, saying, "Yeah, it was the same during the last war when lots of bombs were dropped and Birmingham was hit really badly." Kelly was talking about World War II. Diane now believed that her daughter Kelly and her late grandmother Nanny Wyatt are the same person. At age 7, Kelly was very mature for her age and could easily converse with other adults.
Those are some good ones too, man. Wow. I'm liking this show. This is a pretty cool
Yeah, right. What's
show.
this
Sounds like they've got
channel?
a
Weird
bunch of
World.
different ones.
I'll have to subscribe to that channel. It's good.
I'm subscribing right now.
Subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, Weird World. It's called.
What a view.
And they've got forbidden places and possible evidence of time travel. That's cool.
Mhm.
Neato. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. But those were some pretty good compilations. I would
We've all
say.
heard of the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, sorry.
Not the topic we're on right now.
Not the topic we're on. I hit
No
the
tangents.
wrong wood. Nope. We're not doing it. No, that was cool.
Yeah, that was a good one. So one thing, all the people that we've heard from so far, they've all been pretty much just like normal people that have been reincarnated. There's a kid that claims to be Princess Diana reincarnated.
Ah,
I sent you a video for, and yeah, we haven't heard any like celebrities.
that's true.
The first one that you played of the World War II fighter pilot, he was kind of closest to being known, like in history books or whatever, but there's no celebrities. But
That's a
the
good
Princess
point.
Diana one I thought was really interesting because the kid had knowledge that he shouldn't have and things that they had to actually look up and dig deeper into.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds super cool.
Yeah, Binge-Box. New weirdos every Wednesday and Friday. That's how we like it.
Cool. Okay.
A
yeah,
4-year-old boy in Adelaide.
I don't like the autoplay. Don't autoplay.
I know. Why doesn't it just give me a second? I don't
Give me a
understand
minute.
it. I don't understand. But cool. Wow. No, yeah, those were some good ones. Those
Yeah.
were some really good ones. I like those compilations. Very cool.
Yeah. Oh, it's from the same channel. Whoa.
Oh, shit. This is a good channel, apparently.
channel.
Weird World.
Weird world.
Oh, Plain Toast. What's up?
Oh, hi, Plain Toast. Hello.
We are happy you're
Hello,
here.
hello. Yes. Nice to see you.
We've been talking about past lives and children recalling their past life.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been a really awesome episode so far.
Yeah.
Not as awesome as interviewing you, like we're going to do next week. It's going to be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, next week's going to be good.
Actually, let's give a shout out to
Oh, yeah.
Plain Toast No Jam. I'm pretty sure that everybody in the
Not in
chat already knows and loves him, but we'll put it there anyway. And if any of you guys are not following Plain Toast No Jam, please make sure that you do that. I'm so excited to have him on my show next week. He does tarot readings and just, I don't know, spirituality in general. We're going to talk about lots of different things. I'm really excited to pick his brain.
got questions.
So next Wednesday, we're going to have Plain Toast on. It's going to be really good. I'm excited.
Yeah.
But for now, we've been talking about past lives remembered by children specifically. And this next story is about a 4-year-old who is claiming to be Princess Diana. We're going to check this out, which is totally weird. So let's see. Let's see here.
And Chid's just eating all the bad cheese.
Cheese.
Adelaide,
Say
Australia,
something for me.
has told
Okay. All right, let's start from the beginning.
a 4-year-old boy in Adelaide, Australia, has told his parents that he used to be Britain's Princess Diana in his previous life.
That's okay, lady.
His
You're
parents
totally
laughed
fine.
off the statement. It's one
We
of
have a
those
lurk emote
cute
you can
things
use if
kids
you want to
say.
put in there.
But over time, they were shocked to find that his knowledge of the former Princess of Wales' life
Actually, we were totally talking and we were not paying attention. I wasn't. I'm sorry that you have the flu, but me and Dusty
Yeah.
also have been sick as well. So I think we're probably in
Yeah.
a similar boat.
Yeah.
So it's totally cool. You don't have to be
we don't know.
chit-chatting if you don't want, as long as you're enjoying it, which you are. Just good.
Yeah, we don't really know what it was. Our whole house got it. Tavia had it too. But
Yeah.
it wasn't COVID, but maybe it was a flu of some kind. Julie said her boyfriend got the same type of thing too. So there's something going around. But
Yeah, and Roxy and Chris got
Yeah,
it, but
Roxy
they
and
got
Chris,
it
too.
extra crappy because I had a stomach flu extended version of it.
yeah, glad
is
we
not
didn't have
good.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sucks. Hope you feel better soon.
Yeah, and Chid had
Chid
the
just got
Rona.
over some deathly things.
I'm sorry you don't feel good, but you know what? At least you're here hanging out, enjoying hearing all these crazy stories. So
It's true.
that's cool.
You can hang out and
Like-
watch videos with us.
Yeah, at least we'll keep you entertained. It's very low.
You don't even have to like channel surf. We'll just play videos for you.
Yeah, you just get to hang out. It's great. I wish Christy Lou was here. Miss Christy Lou.
Yeah, seriously.
And Scar's hanging out somewhere. Is Scar still in here? Yep. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Just
She's
checking.
still poking
Just
around.
checking.
Oh yeah.
Okay, everybody, yes. Everybody hydrate. Okay, we're going to start this over. And we're actually going to find out what is the deal. I'm just very curious about this kid. Let's see.
Adelaide, Australia, has told his parents that he used to be Britain's Princess Diana in his previous life. His parents laughed off the statement. It's one of those cute things kids say. But over time, they were shocked to find that his knowledge of the former Princess of Wales' life included facts that it would have been impossible for him to know. Here is the amazing story.
Okay, ready. Yeah.
Billy Thompson was 2 years old when someone gave his British mother Lisa a Lady Di novelty greetings card. On seeing the card, Billy pointed at the image and exclaimed, "Look, it's me as a princess." The family had never discussed the life of the Princess of Wales, who had passed away 18 years before Billy was born. According to his father, TV presenter David Campbell, they also had zero Raw's paraphernalia in their home. The parents were accordingly mystified as to where Billy's comments came from. Billy started talking to his family about his 2 boys, and when later asked, explained that he meant his sons, the British Princes William and Harry. Billy is the grandson of Australian-Scottish-born rock musician Jimmy Barnes, and on meeting a Scottish friend of the family, started describing a castle he used to visit when he was Princess Diana. He accurately named it as Balmoral Castle and said that it had unicorns on its walls. The unicorn is Scotland's national animal, with 2 of the legendary creatures appearing on either side in its royal arms. Multiple images of unicorns adorn the facade and interior of Balmoral Castle. A further disturbing statement came from Billy when Lisa showed him another photograph of Princess Diana. He again claimed that it showed him as a princess, with the added comment, Then one day the sirens came and I wasn't the princess anymore. His parents were chilled to hear that their son appeared to have some memory of the princess's fatal car accident in Paris in 1997. But the strangest and most unexplained part of Billy's account was his mention of a brother called John. Initially, his parents felt relieved. Princess Di's brother was named Charles, and they felt that there was no way she had a brother John. They decided, however, to check her family history online and were astonished to find that a baby brother who had been named John had been born to her parents. Sadly, he passed just hours after birth and a full year before Dinah was born. Folkloric accounts of reincarnation abound in every country of the world and are said to predate the advent of the major religions. A common theme seems to be that children experience memories of past lives from about the age of 2, but by 8 years of age, they have faded. Another is that souls often reincarnate within the same culture. Billy's parents seem to have rightly not asked him too many questions about his memories, some of which are probably traumatic. Shanti Devi, who is much publicised reincarnated soul, has commented that the memories can also raise strong desires to reunite with lost loved ones. And she said, "I do not want to open that closed door again."
Princess Diana even knew about a brother that they never knew about.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And named that castle correctly.
Yeah.
Just trippy.
And it was like, and then I heard the sirens, and I wasn't a princess anymore. Like,
The end.
oh god, that's
Yeah.
messed up, dude.
Weird.
Shit.
I would
that's-
definitely be
that's a
asking
good
more
one.
questions, though. I know
Yeah.
they're like, maybe it's good that we don't, ask these people or ask these kids about all this stuff. Like, I would want to know everything.
Yes.
Tell me more. Especially, you're going to be 5 years old and forget all of it. So tell me everything now.
Yep.
And then when you're
Yep.
5, you can forget about it.
I know, totally.
Yeah.
I would want them. Yeah, I would just tell me everything. Like, sorry, we're talking about how you died, but like, it seems like a lot of the kids when they're saying it, they're not necessarily like super distraught about it. They're just like, "That's where I
Yeah,
died.
that happened. Yeah.
I got bonked in the head, and there was blood, and I'm dead." You know, like, okay,
Yeah. Which it kind of makes me think about, like, likening death and or I guess the similarities between death and like a heavy DMT trip, where like leaving your body, it is extremely calming. Like you go into it very peacefully by the time you're there, even if you're, nervous beforehand by the time it comes on. And just like everybody that describes it says that it's extremely peaceful. And even the people who have died and have been brought back and they've experienced death and had the OBEs, they said that once they left, they were just overcome by a sense of calm. So
sure,
maybe
yeah.
after, it's just the fear of the unknown really that trips us out in life. But maybe after going through it and coming back, these kids are just like, yeah, I died. Like, it's fine. It's not
Yeah,
it's
you're
not a
right.
scary thing, but it's the
more
societal-
matter of fact that this is just what happened.
Yeah, it's just what happens. And it's the societal norm that we put on everybody and where that fear comes from, but if you remember going through it and like remember that you died and it was sudden and then everything was peaceful and you went to heaven, did this whole thing, like talked to whoever and saw animals or whatever and
Yeah.
decided to come back, like it's not really the traumatic experience that we have in our head. It's
Sure.
almost a beautiful experience. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice. That's kind of reassuring
Yeah.
in a way that people that come back with these memories, it's not as scary or emotional, really. It's more of a calming, just matter of fact kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. Interesting.
I'm sure there are some cases where people are a lot more stressed out about it. I mean, we had James having the nightmares of being trapped in the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And that really sucks.
Yeah.
That's a bummer to have to relive.
Having to
that
relive
stress.
that moment is not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember hearing a story many years ago about his mom and the daughter were driving around and they drove over this bridge and she was like, "This is the bridge where I died, Mommy." And she was like,
Mm-hmm.
"What?" And it like kind of freaked the mom out because she's like, it was just so like nonchalant
Mm-hmm.
the way that this kid was talking about it. And it was, you know, another one of these stories where they gave
Actually,
like,
I
the
think
whole thing.
it's that story right there.
Oh, really?
Yep, I think that's the one.
No way. That would be so crazy
It
if
was
you
not the
just had
same
that
one.
one.
I think that's it.
Okay, well, that would be super.
Tia says that when her...
Oh.
Chid's speaking in tongues.
Reverse speech. That's funny.
Oh yeah, reverse speech. Yeah, actually, whenever I was doing research into some of the reincarnation stories, one of the stories I ran across was a kid that got hit in a car wreck and was in a coma, and he came back speaking fluent Mandarin, and it wasn't attributed to any reincarnation story, which is why I didn't put it in there. But I guess he had taken Mandarin, like a couple courses, couple classes of Mandarin.
Okay, so it wasn't
and
totally random.
It wasn't
okay.
completely random, but he was not fluent at all. Like, he could say a couple of phrases here and there and like knew some things. And when he came out of the coma, he actually came out speaking Mandarin and didn't know English, and he had to.
Oh, come on!
Yeah.
Really?
Luckily, there was a nurse that was Chinese and spoke Mandarin, so she was able to translate. And then after a few days, he ended up getting English back and like remembering English again, but the Mandarin stuck to the point where now he's a host on a Mandarin TV show, and like is just completely fluent in Mandarin.
What?
Yeah. I thought that
Didn't
was
even
weird.
remember English anymore.
Yeah, no, he came back. He could read, speak it, read it, and write it in Mandarin. So he was able to write Mandarin as well.
No fucking
And-
way.
But yeah, he couldn't communicate in English for the first
That
couple
sounds like
days.
possessed.
I know, right? Freaky. But yeah, when they said that he had a couple classes, I was like, okay, that's good. Like, at least he, had some kind of connection. It wasn't just like, like, oh, I've only spoken English my entire life, and then you just come back and you're Chinese. Like, what? But yeah,
That's super weird.
trippy though.
Very weird.
But yeah, there's a few stories of stuff like that where people come back speaking different languages.
Yeah, and you have accents and stuff. Yeah, it's very, very, very weird.
Yeah.
But I just feel like an entire like Mandarin, like that's a hard language.
Yeah.
That's like one of the hardest. Oh my god.
Yeah, right.
That's
Yeah,
nuts.
that's not one you just know all of a sudden.
No.
Yeah.
The brain is super weird.
Yeah, Steve's got the accents too. People come back with just like a weird accent, and all of a sudden, like, yeah, weird.
So weird. Wow, that's
Yeah.
so interesting.
Yeah.
Sometimes brain damage is a cool thing, I guess.
Yeah, it could come in handy
I
sometimes.
guess so. Ooh, okay, let's check this story out and see if that is similar to the one that I was just thinking
Yeah,
of
it was
on the
the same
bridge.
one.
Her daughter Leah was 2 years old. She talked with amazing clarity about how she had died underwater. Is that true?
Yeah, it is. We were driving in the car. She was in the back seat, in her car seat.
How old is she now?
She's 5.
Uh-huh.
She'll be 6 Friday.
Okay.
So we're driving in the car, and she says, "Mommy, this is just like where I died." Like, real excited, not upset or anything, just kind of very matter of fact.
At 2 years old.
Yeah, she was about 2 3/4.
So then you say, honey, you didn't die.
I said, well, Leah, what are you talking about? She goes, she says, I was in my car and it fell off the bridge in the water and I died. And so I pulled off the road because I was a little stressed. And she said, and I said, well, where was Mama? And she said, you weren't with me that time. Which
This is what your 2-year-old said.
Yeah, she did. That got the exclamation points going. And I said, well, who was driving the car then? And she said, I was big. I could reach the pedals. And she has no clue that you need pedals to drive a car. She's 2. She's in the car seat. There's like no way she could know that. And I said, well, what happened? And she described, she said, well, I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. And she is absolutely a fanatic about seatbelts. Everyone in our presence that knows us, she is going to make sure they have a seatbelt on. She will not get in the car without one. And neither will anyone else. And she said, well, I didn't have my seatbelt on, and I fell out of the car. And she said, and she put her hand up on her, and she said, Mommy, I was laying on the rocks. I could feel the rocks on my head. And she said, and see the shiny bridge. And she points up. She's looking up. And she doesn't see the shiny bridge and the bubbles going up. She could see the bubbles. And she has she has never seen television at that point in her life at all. And how would she have any knowledge of bubbles rising? She doesn't swim. She doesn't put her face in the water. And she said, I could see the bubbles going up and see the sun on the bridge through the water.
This is what your 2-year-old told you.
Yeah.
Hi, YouTubers. I'm excited to give you.
That's, yep,
That's trippy. But yeah, I think that was the same one you're talking
I
about.
think so, yeah. Wow.
Because yeah, they were driving over the bridge, and she was like, "Hey, this is the one I died on." Like this was it. Yeah. Trippy.
That's so crazy.
What?
I mean,
That's craziness.
that is. And Plain Toast used to speak other languages.
Yeah,
in
I
your
used to
sleep?
speak other languages.
Was it real languages, or were you like speaking in your own language? Please don't say it was Latin, because that's gonna freak me
Oh
out.
yeah, you don't want to be speaking Latin in your sleep.
Nope.
That's not good. That's how you get
That's
demons.
crazy. Yes. It's not good. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yep.
I remember seeing the bubbles going up and like I'm just dying. Wow.
Mhm.
That's
And I could feel the rocks on my head.
wow.
Boo. And yeah, just to talk about it, like, yeah, that happened.
Yep.
Like, anyway,
Yep.
whatever.
Totally.
Do you have any candy?
Totally. Just like, hey, it's not even bothering me.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, there's another Oprah one that you put in your things here.
Oh yeah, this one's a interview with a psychologist who is talking about his patient that convinced him that reincarnation was real. I think I actually wanted to look more into him because I think he's a hypnotist, and I think he started doing past life regressions after some of the stories that he heard, and became a believer after hearing things and corroborating them.
Interesting. Okay.
This one is just like a short
Interested to
clip
check that out.
talking about him, the one that proved it to him.
Ooh, I'll totally check
But
that out next. Wow, your mom said you spoke what sounded like Swedish and Gaelic.
whoa, really?
Wow.
That's super cool. Those are cool languages
That's
to be
so
speaking.
interesting.
Okay, that's way better than Latin.
Oh man, we're totally gonna bring this up next week when
Yeah.
when we talk. It's gonna be great.
Definitely.
I want to know more details
Get your mom on
about
phone
this,
too. We're gonna call her.
and if you remember anything from this stuff. Ooh, it's gonna be good. Our interview is gonna be so good. Yes. But Swedish and Gaelic, very specific.
Yeah.
Okay. Bork, bork, bork. Okay, so let's hear what this guy's got to say.
Back in 1980, Dr. Brian Weiss was using hypnotherapy with a patient named Catherine to discover the roots of her paralyzing phobias. In his book, Many Lives, Many Masters, he writes that
That's the one
during
that
one
Joe
of their
mentioned
sessions,
earlier.
It is,
Catherine regressed back to a time before she was born, recounting a past life as an 18-year-old girl named Aranda from the year 1863 BC. Sounds crazy, I know. So, okay, you are a Yale-trained, Columbia-trained doctor, psychiatrist, agnostic, and this woman is saying these things are coming out of her mouth that are literally unbelievable.
Right.
What did you make of that? I mean, so she finishes her hour session. I mean, I would have let her go 2 hours that day if I were you. She finishes her session, and you say what?
Said, I don't know what this is, but I could already see
Khalid,
it
welcome
was
back.
intense,
Khalid.
it was
We're happy you're
cathartic,
here.
it was emotional, and I didn't know
about past
why
lives.
Because when you're
imagination.
hypnotized, you remember everything you're saying.
Yes, yeah, it's not something that you forget. You remember it, and
So she probably couldn't believe it herself.
for her it was easier than for me because it
believe
was
it.
to believe it. It was so intense for her. She was experiencing it with emotions and visually and sounds and other senses that it became easier over the weeks that followed for her to change her worldview. But for me, I needed more because I was such a skeptic, so left brain, so academic.
Yeah.
And I started already explaining it away. Like, oh, maybe she saw movies or read about this, or maybe it's the collective unconscious that the psychoanalyst Carl Jung wrote about,
Yeah.
or something else going on. But when she came back in the next week, her symptoms were disappearing.
Despite his skepticism, Dr. Weiss started to notice a connection between Catherine's paralyzing phobias and the traumas she says she suffered in her past lives. Remember her fear of water? Well, in one of her past lifetimes, she remembered drowning in a tidal wave. Could that explain her phobia?
And that was even weirder to me as a formally trained psychiatrist, that how does imagination or fantasy cure symptoms that had been there since she was a little girl? It doesn't. So there had to be something deeper. And that was the beginning for me. But it still took that other stuff for me to
So
change.
what was the moment that you were convinced that what she was saying was real and that this was something bigger than you had expected?
It was about the fourth or fifth time, and she died in one of these lifetimes in the past, floated above, replicating all of the near-death experience work. She had never heard of that or read anything. And then...
Had you?
I had read...
Heard of NDEs?
Yes, I had read Raymond Moody's book
Moody.
from the 70s, yeah. And so, Life After Life.
Yes. Raymond Moody is a psychologist, author, and researcher who coined the term near-death experience in the late 70s. By interviewing people who had NDEs, he found they'd experienced many of the same things, like floating above their bodies, watching the scene below, meeting friends and relatives who previously passed, traveling through a long tunnel, feeling no pain and a sense of peace.
So I was aware of that, but in a clinical, academic sense, because I didn't really experience that myself. I didn't know if I believed it, but I knew about his work. And I remember my office feeling very cold, icy cold at this moment. She said, there are two people here to see you, your father and your son. Now she's in this hypnotized state. She's in between lifetimes now, just floating there, but still in a deep state. And she didn't know anything about me. I don't even have diplomas hanging in my office. So she's telling me, your father's here and your son.
So she doesn't know that your father is passed or not passed.
No.
And this was before you could Google your doctor.
It was before the internet. It was, yes, before you could Google your doctor.
Yes.
Before all this, she didn't know anything about my father. She tells me my daughter is named after him. Amy was. She's here now. And she was named after him. His English name was Alvin. His Hebrew name was Avram. She didn't know this. She's a Catholic woman from New England. She said, your father is here. He died from his heart. His heart was important. Your daughter is named after him. And she went into other medical details. He died in New Jersey a year and a half before I began with Catherine, just before Amy was born. Amy was named after him. And Catherine's telling me this, the room's still feeling icy cold. And I'm thinking, what is this? How does she know this? Because he never had an obituary. It's not only before the internet. There's no place to look it up. There's no obituary. It's not written down. Our best friends didn't know these details. And then she said, your son is with him. He's here too. He's very tiny, shining brightly. And his heart is important also because it's turned around backwards. And she went into why he died. Medical details. That was the son, my first child, who died in 1971. This is happening around 1981.
This was the son who had lived 23 days.
Yes, she's telling me about him and the very rare congenital heart deformity. She's describing it and giving me other details. And that was the epiphany for me. That was the moment I knew.
Because you knew nobody knew about that.
No.
You and your wife had kept that.
We had, our relatives didn't know, our best friends didn't know. You can't look that up, can't Google it. There's
Yes.
no article. And I knew then, and knowing her after a year and a half of therapy, I remember thinking, if she's right about these things, about my father and my son, could it also be about past lives and reincarnation and life after death and the existence of the soul and all of us getting reunited again and again and again? And that was the moment when it just all shifted for me for good. Because before that, I was like, push, but it was intellectual still. Imagination doesn't heal and cure symptoms. But now it was personal. She knew my father, she knew my son, she's getting messages. And I asked her, where are you getting this from? And she described, and she was listening, responding to spiritual beings. She called them masters. Master spirits who were there telling her these things. And then I knew, wow, my whole universal order, my whole world was upside down, because now I'm learning about dimensions in heaven and master spirits and angels and steps on the way to God. And I realized my life would never be the same again.
I'm excited to give you an update about our own YouTube channel
Yeah,
named
that makes
Aranda.
it real when she starts talking about your own history. Like,
Yeah.
okay, well,
Yeah, there's no way to kind of deny that at that moment. You're like, all right, well, I'm listening. You now have my
yeah,
attention.
I'm listening.
Wow.
Yeah. interesting right there at the very end, though. He said that he was learning about steps to God. That kid said the same thing, that there's many levels you have to go through to get to heaven. When he was talking about animals being in heaven and stuff, he was saying that I guess his mom asked if he spoke to God, and he said yes, and he said there's many levels to get there.
What? But he said I spoke to him through my heart or whatever, through my soul.
Yeah.
Or something. So
only as a soul. Only met him as
yeah.
as a soul.
So we have our varying thoughts on God and heaven. I don't believe that heaven is what biblically anybody makes it out to be.
No.
But I think it's a good term to explain the afterlife and the different levels.
I think heaven as like
of the afterlife,
the highest of all the levels, whatever that would be, like the end goal essentially of reaching whatever it is that would be looking.
But
for
it could
as a
also
soul.
just be a colloquial term for the afterlife. Because if people are told that, oh, you die, you go to heaven, people are like, I died and I went to heaven and I saw animals and there's all this stuff and all these levels and everything. But I think that it could just be, for lack of a better term, for people to be able to explain what that
I think
really
so
is,
too. I mean, heaven is just talking about, I think it's just talking about a higher vibration. Like I think of it all in frequency, and it's just leveling up. So when they say different levels, I think it's just higher and higher frequencies. Like we try to raise our vibration, like I think it's that. I think it's the next frequency up that we're trying to vibrate on. And whenever, we're talking about dimensions, like the fifth dimension is a higher dimension. The eighth dimension is higher dimension than that, and it's a higher frequency. It's a higher vibration.
Sure.
So heaven, I think, is just a term that people are using, like the way that they describe it in the Bible, but get rid of the biblical meaning of it. I think heaven would just be that highest frequency, like the highest level, highest dimension or whatever that we're all trying to elevate ourselves to, which would be
maybe so
the light frequency, right? Like that would be like the highest vibration of light. So if you're going through the rainbow, you go into all the ultraviolet and like X-ray and everything, it would be the highest vibration as far as frequencies. But I just think it's interesting that they both mention levels to get there. Whatever heaven or God or whatever it is to whoever, I think it's interesting that there's steps to all of it. There's different levels.
I mean, I think that makes an awful lot of sense depending on different factors of, your soul evolution and what it is that you've learned, how conscious people are, how self-aware, how able that they are to traverse through, through these places just by being a being of thought. Like I would imagine that, I've always kind of thought about it like school essentially. So you've got like young kids that don't know really anything about anything, and they're in kindergarten, so you learn the basics. You learn how to like cut stuff and glue stuff, and you learn the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s and all that kind of stuff. And then in second grade, okay, maybe we're going to start to read really simple things now. It's like you don't just take a kid and put him into senior year of high school and expect them to be able to know what the fuck is going on. Like you've got to kind of go through these steps in order,
base of knowledge.
Yes, to be able to build that up. So I would think of it as the longer that we cycle through and the more times that we've had, which means that's the more times that we've been back to that place, and my personal circumstances, if I've been doing this for thousands and thousands of years, I mean, think about, I don't know if it's like each one is like lifetimes, like right after another, but like I could have been back and forth to that realm, 6,000 times.
Yeah,
so
how many
it's
generations is that you could have been through?
So fucking many. So if I've been back, if it's my 6,000th visit back, everyone's like, hey, welcome back, the ropes, here you go, make yourself a sandwich, do whatever. We don't have to babysit you, basically. But if there's newer souls who don't understand, like you don't have a body, so now everything's via thought. And teaching somebody how to operate with thought only is probably a pretty hard task, which I think that there's essentially like teachers as well, people that are there to help welcome people and to help explain things to them and show them how it works, basically. So I think that the levels could be something as far as that goes as well, with the, you know, the vibrations increasing, the more self-aware and the more practice that you've had in that. And maybe the goal in the end is to not have to come back and do this physical work, just to be able to exist in a higher vibration and be able to operate via thought only, rather than having to deal with a lot of the trials and tribulations that come as a human. There's a lot to learn as a human, and there's a lot of wonderful things that come as being a human, but there's also a lot of bullshit that I would imagine we don't have to deal with anymore once we're just
Probably
ascended.
But
to
the
the next
bullshit is
level.
where we learn, right?
It is. But that's the thing. It's like, okay, you've done good. You've learned as much as your path needed you to learn, or whatever. Which is, you know, why I think maybe that choice to come back, like, you know, Tavia's talked before about how she was basically given a choice to come back. Like, you don't have to go back. You've reached that level, but if you want to go back and experience life one more time, you have that option. And that she specifically remembers choosing to come back for one last hurrah type of thing, which is very interesting. I don't remember being given the choice. I'm just pretty sure that I chose to come back when I did at this point, for whatever reason. I think it was to see the change of the world, like to actually physically see the changeover from analog to digital and step into the future, because I believe that all the times that I've done this before, it's always been, you know, back in old-timey days, you know, like this is a whole new thing.
Yeah.
And it's cool what's happening. There's a lot of cool stuff, but I'm out. This is the end of the line for me, which is totally cool. I'm ready. I'm good. I'm enjoying life right now. I'm going to see everything I can and enjoy this life as much as I can, and then I'm good. You guys can have it. With your global warming and your fucking bombs and people being fucking crazy, and with, you know, with shitty pop music and all of it. I'm good. I'm good.
Give your music.
Yeah.
Whoa,
I'm
Chid
opting
reached the
out.
hummingbird vibration. That's, wow.
Oh man. So much espresso.
You know, Shadow, I've heard of the 11 levels of consciousness too. I haven't looked it up either. I don't really know what it's about. I just did a quick search to see if anything pulled up on it, and not a whole lot. There was a couple things, but they don't look like they were listed out as like steps, or basically like, what is the first level, what is the second level. But I have heard of that too, and it's something that I should know more about. Is my, you know, my studies into consciousness personally, or it's kind of one thing that I'm always looking into and diving into, and that's something that I should know about. So I'm going to do research into that myself.
Yeah.
Because
Cool.
That's
That would
interesting.
be
Because it has come up. I just have
interested
never
in that.
searched it specifically to figure out exactly what that would be.
Yep, I think that there's definitely a graduation program as far as consciousness just existing, and then in the afterlife. You know, I feel like it's kind of all one and the same in the end. But that's the thing, like, if, you know, talked about this before, but just to reiterate it, like, just thinking about the fact that back in the day there was so less people, and now there's so many more people. We've almost doubled the population of the planet in our lifetime. So where do all the souls come from? You know, and that is the question. And I think a lot of them are very new. A lot of them is just split from the big energy vortex that's out there, and I think there's a lot of new ones, which is honestly why I think there's a lot of horrendous bullshit happening right now, because it's just like a bunch of babies trying to fucking figure it out, but they haven't really gotten compassion and empathy down yet. I think that potentially takes time to learn that over and over and over, and to keep practicing that one. I'm sure some people innately have it, but I feel like it's just like a bunch of kids just like set free that don't have as much of an understanding about what's truly important and where it is that we all come from. So they're just being very selfish and very living in the moment and not thinking about the repercussions of their actions. And I think that's a big reason why we're in such a fucked situation that we're in right now. There's too many kindergartners running around with scissors. You know, and I'm like, stop running with
Everybody's got
scissors.
scissors and they're all running around.
Yeah, and there's some of us over here where we're like, you guys, stop running with scissors, please. Did anybody tell you that? And they're like, no, nobody told me that. Fuck you. Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Good night, Steve.
Oh, yes. Good night, Steve.
We adore you.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
We're glad that you were here.
Yep. Thanks for holding down the chat.
And we'll see you very soon. Sweet dreams.
Definitely.
So, yeah. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I think there's a very limited amount of very old souls. And then I think there's like, a moderate amount of moderately aged souls that popped in at some point, later on down the line.
Yeah.
But
which is interesting because we talk about like, all the terrible things that are going on, but terrible things have kind of always been going on in the world. Like there's always been empirical like groups that are taking over areas. Like it's kind of always been there, even with less people. But
thanks, Chid. Sorry,
thanks,
hold on
Chid.
1 second.
Hooray.
Thanks, Chid.
Thanks for
We
all
love you. Good
zombie
night. Here, I'm gonna
tombstones.
give you some mod love.
Oh yeah, you
emotes
get
here.
mod love.
Mod love. Everybody give mod love to Chid.
Throw mod love at Chid.
Thank you, sweetheart. We appreciate you so much. I'm glad you were here.
Mod love.
Oh my goodness,
Callie.
Callie.
Thanks, Callie. Thanks for gifting those
That
subs.
was so
That's so
sweet.
awesome.
Thank you so much.
we got 5 more roped
wow,
in.
look at all the fun things in the background too.
Oh yeah, and look at all the fun
That was
people
so
that
sweet,
got.
Callie. Thank you.
And we got Kirby Jules and Honeybee and Sarah and Aaron.
Cerise
Cerise
and
and
Aaron.
Aaron. Oh yeah, Cerise and Aaron.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
Philco and Nightwicked. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, we
Thank
love all those
you.
people.
I know.
Way to give
that's
subs to all the
amazing.
people that we love. That was good.
That's a true story.
Yeah, that's
that
awesome.
was really sweet, Kelly.
Thank you for
Thank
that.
you
We
so
appreciate
much.
that.
And thanks, Chid, and thanks, Steve, and thank all of you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice. That made me very happy. That made my heart happy.
Yeah.
Yay.
But yeah, just thinking about, what you were saying about the ratio of the young souls to old souls and how it's kind of a learning thing, especially with compassion and empathy. And thinking about how throughout history it's always kind of been there's bad stuff going on. It's interesting how when there were less souls on the planet, bad stuff was going on, and as we get more and more souls, it feels like as those older souls learn compassion and empathy, they exponentially put out more souls, more young little souls are coming out, so that ratio seems to always kind of stay off to where there's always more young than there is experienced. Like there's always more students than there are teachers.
Yes,
always,
that's
and
very, very true.
No matter how much we grow, until we slow down population, like it's kind of always going to be like that.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yep. And we're not going to slow down population. Unfortunately, it's never going to happen. It's sad.
Not organically,
and
anyway.
it is what it is. Like, I think that there are some really aware and evolved humans on this earth. And I think that they're helping that balance a little bit, really helping it to not completely tip to the completely ignorant side of the spectrum. So that is good. But I don't know. I think that sadly we're the minority, and I'm glad that we're helping raise the vibration. But when it comes down to it, I don't think that we're going to win. I don't think we're going to overcome all the newer destructive
don't think we can.
ones. I don't think we can, but that's okay, because it's not about winning. It's just about us doing our best, and hopefully we continuously evolve, and there's more people around us that have more evolved perspectives and actually give a shit about each other and want to make the world a better place, and we do that in the ways that we can, and that's all we can do. But we can't stop everybody else from doing what it is that they're doing. It's not our responsibility or our job to do that.
Yep. Nope.
Which I learned that. I had
we
to
just
work
give
on
subs whenever we can.
that.
That's all we can do.
Totally. Yep. We all just got to do our best with what it is that we're given. But as far as the other levels go, I think that it probably does correlate in some way. Oh my God, we have a hype train?
Oh, we got a hype
Oh
train.
shit, we got a hype train.
Oh, Plain Toast, you started a hype train.
You kicked it off.
Good job.
You are the conductor.
Yeah.
Awesome.
The
Thanks,
conductor
guys.
of this hype train.
Cool. Well, we are
fun.
89% on a level 2 hype train right now.
Yeah.
Shit.
Wow.
What do you guys want us to do?
That showed
Anybody
off
want to do
quickly.
anything?
That
I'll
was
do
amazing.
stuff.
Yeah.
That was so
89%.
awesome.
It just started.
Yeah.
How do we get to 89% on level 2?
Because it
guys-
shows you all the things that you've done before, and it puts it towards it. Lady, yay!
All right, thanks, lady.
This is awesome.
You guys are
Sweet.
awesome.
We just hit level 2. But bam. Okay, now on level 3. I mean, no pressure
was
for
easy.
anybody. I love you guys. I'm so
Yeah.
glad you guys are here. No pressure for anybody to give
Well, you
any
guys
more
are
than you
awesome.
already have. But I mean, it makes me feel pumped. Oh wait, we even have.
Oh, we got.
No,
we don't have hype.
No, we don't have a
ones,
hype. I
no,
thought we
no,
did
no.
have. I thought we had a new
Hype was in
emote.
the. It was in the list, but
It was, but we didn't do that one. That's okay.
maybe we should make. We should make hype the next one.
Ooh.
Hype will
I
be
mean,
good. Or
we
that could be
could.
one of our animated ones. We get animated ones.
That's true.
We can make hype a new animated emote.
Let's do it.
Getting hype.
And everybody will get hype. Ooh,
that'll be fun.
yeah. Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
Yeah.
I love when we have hype
Applause to
trains.
you
It's so
guys.
cool.
All of you are amazing. We love
It's
you.
so cool. Yay, thanks everybody.
Sorry, we don't have any
It makes my day.
tricks to do.
I know. I feel like we need to come up with some kind of like interesting thing to
could
help
walk like
help
an
the hype
Egyptian.
trains like go forth. Yeah, Plain Toast, you like that? Those new emotes, aren't they fucking sick?
Yeah, they're great. Oh,
Fucking awesome.
yeah.
I was
Got
really
new ones
excited
in
about
there.
them. I was
Special ones for our lurkers and
yeah,
got a
because
new raid rocket.
right off the bat we could have 5, but then you get more the more subs that you have, you get
rocket.
more like sub tokens or whatever, and it opens up new slots, and I was so happy.
Yeah.
Yay, the Memento Mori. I know it's perfect. It's perfect.
Totally.
I'm really
yeah,
glad
that
you
one
love it. It
turned out
means a
really
lot to
cool.
me.
I think that's one of my favorite ones. Just as far as aesthetically, I think that's one of my favorite
It's
emotes.
fucking
It looks
great.
really cool.
I scribbled a bunch of shit on paper for Dusty. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so I have this idea, and this idea, and this idea, and like, there you go. And then he came up with this awesome shit.
That's how we do it.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, we got that. Hooray!
Shadow!
Thanks, Shadow.
Yes! We got
You're
5 more
crazy.
subs.
You're crazy.
We got 5 more subs.
Yeah.
Thank you
Oh,
so
Kuda
much.
Slayer.
That's fucking
Oh,
awesome.
and Alf, we got Alf in there.
Fucking
Rob's in there.
awesome.
And Physicist Ben,
Sweet.
one of our newest friends.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Oh my
Oh,
god,
you
my
guys are
heart
great.
is so full and happy and exploding right now. We're at a level 4 fucking hype train. Shit. I didn't even see that coming.
Yeah, I didn't
We're
see
just
that
rambling about past lives, and this is just an awesome thing to
talk about
happen
past
today.
lives
This
more.
makes me so happy. And it's just in time everybody gets these subs with the new emotes, so it's like extra cool.
Yeah, totally.
We're hoping that people will want to continue their subs, not only because we're awesome and you should want to continue to sub anyway,
Not only
but
because
in
of that.
addition to that, the fact that we got cool emotes, maybe people will want them. Because I subscribe to people sometimes just for their emotes.
Definitely.
I do. And I will resubscribe if their emotes were good and I liked using them. I will totally do it. Which, by the way, Plain Toast, your fucking emotes are on point.
Oh,
I
yeah.
use them all the time.
Even if your stream
love 'em.
sucked, I still would have subbed. Luckily, it doesn't, so I
Mm-hmm.
subbed for a good reason. But yeah, your emotes are awesome.
They are. They're so good.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it is a classic image from the straight from the graves.
Yep. Yep. In Scotland, there's like so much amazing imagery with skull and crossbone imagery.
very true.
But more so, the winged skulls are really heavily seen, like in the Salem and New England area, which we saw so many really cool ones when we were out in New England.
Definitely.
That's awesome. But to this day, Scotland takes the cake as far as grave amazingness, I guess I could say. Skilled graves. My God, they're so fucking amazing out there.
Some
It's
of those
next level
carvings,
shit.
The freaking Blackfriars and those
Oh, Greyfriars.
Greyfriars.
Yep.
Not Blackfriars. Yeah,
Yes.
Greyfriars. Like they had. So first
Dude,
of all,
Greyfriars.
some of
holy
those
shit.
walls, like they weren't even headstones.
No.
It was like walls that were, what, 15 feet tall?
They're
Like
really high.
15, 20 feet tall, like just huge. And like they were family plots, so this thing would back it. But then the carvings coming
They're
off of it were
fucking
so
amazing.
three-dimensional, and there would be like leaves and all this filigree that they would come off so far that there's gaps behind it. Like they
Yeah.
would carve out behind
It
it, and
was
it just looked
amazing.
so delicate. Like,
Oh, what's up, Alf? You just got gifted a sub.
Oh,
What up?
Alf,
you
you
came
just
at
got
the
a sub.
perfect time.
Perfect
you got
timing.
subs.
So now you got a ghost and you got new emotes.
Fuck yeah, we
How's
do.
that?
Boom.
Yeah, thanks to Shadowstorm.
Yes, thank you,
You're in the
Shadow.
club.
Yeah.
Also, we got your hot sauce. We got your hot sauces.
We did. We totally got
And they're so good.
the best hot sauces. Oh my god, they're so good.
I put the
I love them.
blueberry one on a sandwich yesterday. Oh, man. And
So
we
good.
have a blueberry jam too, so I threw a little bit of blueberry jam on there, and then I
Thanks,
kind of smothered
Andrea.
it in the blueberry hot sauce. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Alf,
Andrea.
you came in
Right.
right in the middle of a hype train. Holy shit.
Yeah, we're on
We're having a hype train.
23%
It's
level 4
fucking
at the
awesome.
moment. We're doing great. And yeah, you just got a sub.
And also, Plain Toast, I see that you mentioned Highgate Cemetery. We have been twice to Highgate Cemetery.
Good one.
And it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. I would say if you're comparing Greyfriars Kirkyard, vastly like blows Highgate out of the water as far as the craftsmanship of these stones. But I will say Highgate is so fucking beautiful. It's amazing. Oh, Honeybee, thank you, sweetheart. Thank you so much. And you got a sub too.
Yeah.
Look at all these guys. We're summoning all of these folks to come in because they got gifted subs. It's so awesome.
Yeah, everybody's like,
I'm so
what? I
happy
got
you
a
guys are
sub.
here. Woohoo.
Yeah. I'm going to throw a link in here. If any of you guys don't know, these guys make a hot sauce. Alf makes a hot sauce,
Thank you for adding to the hype train. You're so sweet.
and it's amazing. They're all amazing. Every one of them's amazing.
Yes.
But go and check that out and buy those.
Oh, yeah.
because
They're really, really good.
You will regret nothing.
The
That
garlic one is like super fucking hot,
Oh,
dude.
it's
It's
hot.
awesome. I threw some in some mac and cheese and it was so fucking good.
Hmm.
Highly recommend. But it's hot.
Super good.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. But yeah, the cemeteries, man, there's some good good cemeteries out there for sure.
Yeah, the
and
Highgate, that's the one with the
dead.
dead, right? Yeah.
Yes.
One of the best headstones. It just says dead.
It's huge.
great.
And
It's
it literally
giant.
just says dead.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh, we're down to 5 seconds. Oh, there we go. Hype train's good to go. Thank you guys so much for everybody
Yeah.
for participating in the hype train.
Good job, everyone.
And everybody that helped kick it off.
Hooray.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone. You're all
That
amazing.
was so awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Now I feel pumped.
Yeah, no, we're all
We got 10
ramped
subs
up.
and we got 1,120 bits.
What?
Booyah. Jazzed.
Wow, you guys are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. What a nice little fun party we're
That's
having.
fun.
So for any of you guys that just popped in, we're talking about past lives.
Yep.
And we're talking about children that remember past lives. And it has been a really cool show thus far, and it's not even over yet.
Oh, Callie, you're going to bed?
Are you leaving us,
You're
Callie?
leaving us now? You're just going to come and, like, be like a fairy with presents and dip out?
Thank you for being a fairy with presents. We really
we love
appreciate
presents
it.
around here.
That was really sweet. Thank you so much for making that happen.
Yeah.
And I hope you come back soon.
Yeah.
Especially next week, next Wednesday, when I interview Plain Toast No Jam. I know you guys are all in cahoots, so make sure that you come and pop in the chat, and we'll be taking questions from the chat and everything. It'll be really fun.
Yeah.
It's going to
Definitely.
be good.
That's going to be good.
It's definitely going to be good. So let's see.
Well, for now, we
What
got,
other fun things
we
that
got
we
more
can-
reincarnations.
We do.
We've learned about some really interesting reincarnation stuff tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot. Of
I thought
very
there was
interesting
only like a few of these stories. I thought the ones that we knew about were like the ones, but apparently no. There's a lot
No,
more.
there's definitely a lot.
Than I knew about.
There certainly fucking is.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a few of them. Let's see what else we've got. So one of my favorite
Callie, good.
stories.
Well,
Good. I'm
Glad
glad that
to
you
see
love
that.
us. We love
That'll
you
be
too.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I love doing these specials. It's really fun
Mm-hmm.
getting to focus on things, and it's nice to see when people are into the subject matter where they're really enjoying it. So it makes me really happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That you guys are all
Yeah,
here
these
and enjoying
special
it.
episodes are doing pretty good. I'm liking it.
It is good because our weird news is great, and then whenever we do an interview, we're talking about specific stuff with a specific person. But this is a good way to cover a lot of the really interesting stuff that we
Topics that we
are
talk
into.
about always.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
it's great. So I think it's good rather than doing an interview every Wednesday. I think that it's good to kind of trade off.
Yeah,
It's perfect.
I agree with that.
I love it. So I'm glad that you guys are liking it too. It's a nice way to not be like, shit, I never heard back from somebody about an interview. What are we going to do? It's like, we're going to talk about some bullshit. It's totally fine.
What rabbit hole are we going down this week?
I love rabbit holes. That's great.
Huh?
I actually thought about naming the podcast Down the Rabbit Hole initially. Already exists. So so I couldn't do that.
Oh, really?
So I went with Inspired by Mystery, but it's because we go down the rabbit holes all the time. Yeah.
Always. This is true.
So the next story that we've got, now I have the whole full documentary on deck right now, and it's a little bit on the long side. So I'm wondering if maybe we do part of it and maybe I can kind of skip around, or if everybody's interested, we could just, I guess, keep going, or I could put the link in the chat, whatever. But this is a really interesting story about this this Irish boy who remembers in extreme detail what his previous life was and where he lived and who his family was. And we were saying before about how a lot of the kids are just very kind of like nonchalant about it. This kid really had an emotional response. He missed his family to where it was affecting his life, where he just couldn't shake the fact that he knows that there is this other family out there. So I'm a big fan of this documentary. I say we give it a go, and if we need to, we can skip forward a little bit if it's a little too long-winded or whatever. But it's absolutely fantastic. So I think this is a good story to cover. And the documentary is called The Boy Who Lived Before, and it is available on the YouTubes. So yeah, if you guys are ready, get a little popcorn or something, and we're gonna learn about this amazing
chat our way through it.
story. Yeah, and we can pause at any point if you guys have things that you want to bring up in the chat. We can absolutely pause and discuss, because there's probably going to be a lot of discussion. But it's really good. So I say, don't zone out on this one, guys. Like, it's worthy of paying attention to. So here we go. The boy who
things that he's seeing, and the story that he keeps coming up with.
Over 200 miles away from his home in Glasgow.
I lived in the White House with my mum and dad and my 3 brothers and sisters.
And he just talks about, I was in Barra and I fell through to you. And I'm saying, what do you mean? And he'll say, no, it was just like a hole and I fell through.
Children from all over the world report memories of previous lives. It's a pretty interesting phenomenon.
Together with psychiatrist Dr. Jim Tucker, Cameron and his mum are going on a search for evidence of his past life. Are there rational explanations for the remarkable coincidences which follow? Or are there stranger forces at work? Norma Macaulay is a single mum who lives in Glasgow with her 2 young sons.
Well, I've got 2 boys, lovely boys, like, even if I say so myself. I've got Martin, who's 6, and I've got Cameron, who's 5.
Since Cameron first started to talk, he has described life as a child on Barra, a remote island in Scotland's Outer Hebrides.
I lived in the White House with my mum and dad and my 3 brothers and sisters.
From the age of 2, Cameron has been telling his family the same story. As he's grown older, the story hasn't changed. It's just become more detailed. Norma could not understand how Cameron knew about Barra, let alone have such clear memories of life on the island.
At first I just thought, oh, he's making things up. And then I was thinking, how does he know the name Barra? Why is it Barra where none of us have been or have any connection with?
Barra lies off the western coast of Scotland, 220 miles from Glasgow. It can only be reached by a lengthy sea journey or an hour-long flight. It's a tiny, distant outpost of the British Isles and is home to just over 1,000 people.
My favourite place in Barra was the beach, and I took my dog with me and I played with him and my brothers and sisters to play.
He used to say, I'm a Barra boy, I'm a Barra boy.
The planes was to land on the beach.
He said there's like a small beach. He says in like small planes and they land on the beach.
Barra is a loads of place to run it down, but here is not a lot because the houses are near each other.
I did one time say one of these days we will go up and see Barra, and then it's like, well, I'll show you where my house is, and I'll show you round. Will we see your Barra dad?
No.
Why not?
Because he's dead.
He's dead? He says, my real Barra dad didn't look left and right.
My Barra dad got knocked down.
Cameron even claims to know his Barra dad's name.
Shane Robertson.
Shane Robertson?
Yes.
So who was Shane Robertson again?
A Barra dad.
A Barra dad.
Was that fast?
Is that the one that got knocked down?
Friends and family have also been drawn into Cameron's story. Next-door neighbour Diane Miller has known Cameron since he was born, and her son Aaron has grown up with him.
Hello. When they were about 2 was when Cameron started to speak about his Barra family.
And my brothers and sisters and my friends.
Well, you get friends in Barra too?
My house in Barra and family in Barra, because Cameron was adamant he had this other family. What was his name?
Shane Robertson.
And he would tell you over and over again, so you know he wasn't just making it up there and then.
And he got knocked over by a car.
Cameron's uncle, Ian Watson, initially dismissed his nephew's stories as fantasy, but as time passed, they became harder to explain away.
It's just the fact that he's just consistent in, you know, the things that he's saying and the story that he keeps coming up with. And over the 3 years, he's never wavered from it. If you look at his face when he's telling you these things, he believes they're true.
My dad and mum had long hair and she got cut short.
You'll see, I was with my Barra mum before you had me, before I came to this family. And he just keeps saying to me, you'll really like her, she's really nice. One time I said to him, joking, do you love me or your Barra mum? And he says, I love you both the same. I thought he would have said me, but he never.
Cameron's growing emotional attachment to his Barra mum concerned Norma. He began to miss her so badly that he started to suffer genuine distress.
One day when he was at the nursery, he got quite upset. He was saying rather than me picking him up that day, he wanted his Barra mum to come and get him. And the big tears were running down his face, and he just kept saying, I have to go to Barra, I have to go to Barra, my family are missing me. How do you deal with that? What do you do? What do you say to him?
Little guy.
I know, right?
Ever since he could speak, Cameron has described a previous life, growing up on the remote island of Barra in the Outer Hebrides. Cameron is desperate to visit Barra, but Norma, his mum, wants to find out if there is a rational explanation for his unusual memories.
I think I'm a very open person, but this was still throwing me. I mean, I believe Cameron does know Barra. How he knows it, I don't know. I don't think MD really has every answer. As I say, for somebody that is quite open and it's thrown me. I'd just like to know, has he seen it on the television? Is there a house like he talks up there? Or just like to know what's behind it all.
Norma's first stop in her search for answers is Dr. Chris French, a psychologist. He edits The Skeptic magazine, which debunks paranormal phenomena. The hope is that he may have a rational explanation.
You can get situations where I would bet my bottom dollar that what we're dealing with are false memories. And I mean, kids have fantastic imaginations, as I'm sure you're aware. Obviously, these days, you know, we've got lots of TV programs, lots of TV channels, we've got the internet. Is there any possibility, do you think, that he might have, say, seen something on TV at some point, some program that
I'm not saying it's not possible, but I've never seen Barrett on the television. I'm trying to think of times that Cameron would be watching programmes without me, or just like that sort of programme, but not to my knowledge.
But I mean, it is possible there was someone who told Cameron stories about life on the island of Barra and then moved away.
Like, I know everybody kind of round about, and as I say, especially the fact that Martin and Cameron's so close in age, so why doesn't Martin know all this?
Okay, I mean, it may be
do you
that...
know, I'm just saying
I take your point entirely.
I take yours, but I'm just saying, from I'd be more than practically 100% say, but there's nobody been talking about Barra. I've asked my family. None of us know even MD. It comes from Barra, been to Barra.
But it may not be coming from your family. You're either dealing with a situation where he has picked up the information through normal sources, or maybe, just maybe, you know, there's something kind of much more interesting and challenging going on here.
Norma leaves Chris with more questions than answers. Could it be that Cameron's elaborate story is no more than a fantasy? Norma's next step is a visit to Karen Majors, an educational psychologist whose speciality is children and their fantasy lives.
Pleased to meet you.
And you.
Cameron's mum.
It's really interesting. Basically, how Cameron describes his world really seems to be quite different from how children with imaginary friends and imaginary worlds describe their experiences. He's saying it's real, and even very young children with imaginary friends will say they're only pretend, you know, or they'll call them my invisible friends. Children who have imaginary creations feel in control of those imaginary creations, so, you know, they can determine what's going to happen in that world, and it really feels like Cameron isn't able to direct what's going there at all. There is a consistent pattern, and Cameron's experiences don't really fit into that pattern, so I think it's about exploring other possible interpretations about how to understand Cameron's experience.
Karen's conclusion reinforces Norma's belief that Cameron's descriptions of life on Barra are unusual. They set him apart from other children who construct imaginary worlds because he believes that they are real. But he is not alone. In the past 40 years, there have been reports of over 2,500 children who claim to have memories of another life. At the University of Virginia, a department has been set up to investigate these stories. Psychiatrist Dr. Jim Tucker is the director of research.
So this is a worldwide phenomenon. It takes place in places and families with a belief in reincarnation and places and families without a belief in reincarnation. And in a number of the cases, the child's statements have been verified to be accurate.
Many of these cases show a pattern of consistent and detailed information.
The children will usually start talking about these memories at a very early age, usually 2 or 3. Some of them talk about them matter-of-factly, but other children use great emotion in describing these things and will often long for the previous family.
Jim records the child's memories and investigates whether there might be a connection to an actual person who has lived before. Many of the cases seem to defy simple, rational explanation. One of Dr. Tucker's most celebrated cases was a boy he investigated from the Midwest of America.
This is a very interesting case of a boy who had memories of being his grandfather. And he said that God gives you a card to come back. And I guess this is a drawing of the card that he did.
Gus Taylor is the child who drew that card. Since he was a toddler, he has believed that in a past life, he was his own grandfather. Gus is now 10 years old.
When he was about 1.5, I was changing his diaper on his changing table, and he all of a sudden just looked at me and said, "You know, when I was your age, I used to change your diaper." And I went, whoa, this is weird.
Gus was named for his grandfather. and his full name is August. His grandfather had died the year before he was born, so he really didn't, he never got to know his grandfather. But he would insist that he was Grandpa Augie. If we were referring to Grandpa Augie, he would just say, you mean me? You know, he was just very adamant, like, we should know that he is Grandpa Augie.
Where's me?
There. There.
Where's me again? See if you can find me somewhere else.
Gus was 4 when Ron was given an old family album. To his parents' astonishment, Gus was able to point out his grandfather in an old school photograph. He also correctly identified this as the first car that his grandfather ever owned.
He showed me a picture, and then I said, that was my first car. And then my dad was like, that's weird, because the car was Grandpa Augie's first car. So it was all scared.
Kathy and Ron were intrigued by their son's ability to identify his grandfather in photos. But one day, Gus told them something that turned their intrigue to shock.
Gus and I were chatting, and he started saying something about Grandpa Augie, which wasn't unusual. And I said to him, when you were Grandpa Augie, did you have any sisters or brothers? He said, well, I had a sister, but she died. And so that sort of caught my attention because, you know, we haven't had any deaths in the family. And he said, well, she died. And I just sort of looked at him and he said, yeah, she turned to a fish. She died, some bad guys.
I just was flabbergasted. I really was just I was speechless because I just couldn't understand how he would know anything about that.
Apparently what happened was his aunt was murdered and her body was dumped into the San Francisco Bay.
There was no way he could know anything about her circumstances and how she died because it was never discussed and was barely discussed with me, with him, in my family. To hear my son, who didn't know my father, didn't know his aunt who was murdered, speak about this, and because that's when I just went, there's something going on here that I just don't understand.
For many in the West, reincarnation is an alien idea. Chris French believes that it's simply a comforting illusion, which helps some people avoid the difficult realities of death.
On the one hand, you've got science that says, once you die, that's it, that's the end, nothing else. On the other hand, you've got a belief system that says you will survive, you will be reunited with your loved ones. In a sense, you do go on forever. You know, how much more appealing can you get? I mean, we all want that, we'd all want to believe that.
I mean, science doesn't really say that. Science says we don't know. It doesn't say...
For Kathy Taylor, her son Gus's belief that he was his own grandfather reborn went totally against her own religious upbringing.
I grew up a Southern Baptist. My father's a Southern Baptist minister, and Southern Baptists certainly don't, you know, teach anything about reincarnation. So that was not, you know, that was furthest from my mind when Gus started saying these things. This one day, he sort of popped up and looked at me and said, you know, Mom, when we die, we get to come back. And he looked at me again and he said, I used to be big and now I'm a kid again. And he was just very excited about this. He said that God gave him a ticket. And, you know, he also referred to a porthole and that he came through a porthole and that he used to be big and all of a sudden he's through this porthole and then he's a kid again.
Curiously, the description of the rebirth given by Gus in America has strong parallels with Cameron's account in Scotland.
He talks about falling through from Barra to here. I asked him, how did you get here? And he just talks about, I was in Barra and I fell through to you. And I'm saying, what do you mean? And he'll say, no, it was just like a hole and I fell through, and that's all he says. It used to be Caitlin, and what was the other one?
Megan.
Megan.
You're fucking Megan, I can't. You fancy everyone's a white one. Not done yet.
Aaron and Cameron had been playing, and Aaron had mentioned how it's okay if you die, because Cameron said you come back again as somebody else, so it didn't matter if you died.
It has become clear to Norma that there are no easy answers to the questions thrown up by Cameron's memories. Cameron has asked persistently to be taken to Barra. Norma has finally decided to make that journey.
We are going to go to Barra. I mean, it wasn't a decision that was made lightly. I've gave it an awful lot of thought, stood up to an awful lot of folk that were against me doing it, and I just hope I proved them that I was right to do what I've done. Come on.
Perhaps the trip will provide an explanation for Cameron's memories, or put them to rest.
You want to run now? I think I'm hoping that when Cameron goes, it gives them proof, or, I mean, they maybe go here and they'll say, that's not Barra, so then that's fine, that's not Barra, end of story, that's the end of it. But I think it's reached a point, it's went too far. It's gone too far just to leave it now.
At the University of Virginia, Dr. Jim Tucker has been speaking to Norma and following Cameron's case with interest.
Well, Cameron's case certainly sounds like a very promising one. He's given the name of a place, which fortunately turns out to be a rather small place, and he's also given the name of a person. So with all the details that he's given, if we're able to verify a match, that would be quite intriguing.
For Jim, to follow a case as it unfolds is a unique opportunity. He is flying from Virginia to Glasgow to join Norma and pursue the story in person.
I mean, as it stands now, it's a very interesting story. If we're able to verify the statements, then it becomes more than that, because then it becomes evidence that he actually does have memories that have carried over from a previous life.
This is Cameron.
Hi, Cameron.
Cameron, you saying hello?
Hello.
I'm Dr. Tucker. How are you?
This is Dr.
Hi, Martin. What can you tell me about the house that you left in?
It was white.
How many stories were there? Was it just one level, or was it more than one?
One level.
Yeah. Did you see your dad get knocked out by the car? Yeah. You remember his name? Yeah, what was his name?
Shane Robertson.
Shane Robertson. Do you remember what he looked like?
He had spiky hair and those weird shirts.
Spiky hair? Is that what you said?
He wore shirts.
Norma finally has someone to talk to who really understands her experience.
It was getting to a point he was that convincing. I'm sure folk thought I've adopted him, or like he wasn't really mine, because he spoke so convincing about this other family.
And has it slowed down, or is it still going as strong as ever?
It calmed down for a wee while, but then it's back.
Is he excited about the trip?
Yeah.
Yeah.
After 3 years of listening to Cameron's descriptions of life on a remote island, Norma and Martin are taking him on a journey of another lifetime.
How's he going to react? What if he gets upset? What if we go and these things are there, how he's described?
Cameron is finally going to visit the place that he calls home.
So cool, he gets to go.
Norma and her sons Martin and Cameron are leaving Glasgow to fly to Barra, an island in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland, where Cameron believes that he lived in a previous life. They are being accompanied by psychiatrist Dr. Jim Tucker, an expert in children's past life memories. Cameron believes that his family name was Robertson and that he lived in a big white house, a house full of children. He says he had a black and white dog. There was a view from the house to the sea, and that they could see planes land, not on a runway, but on the beach. Could any of these apparent memories correspond to reality?
You know, there's the concern that if he really is having memories of a previous life, that taking him back to that place might be traumatic. But what usually is the case is actually the reverse, that seeing the old place kind of puts the memories in perspective so that the child is then able to let go of them more.
The planes was to land on the beach. I told you it was true.
You recognise it? Yeah? You okay? Yeah, good boy. It's just after saying I've told you it was all true. Feel happy to be here?
Yeah. It looks nice here. It's nice here.
They go into the airport to collect their bags.
He was saying he used to go over that bit over there, and when they used to see the rainbows, they used to try and jump up and get them. But they're too high, aren't they?
Well, we're certainly off to a good start. I mean, he feels that he recognizes the place. He said to his brother, I told you it was true, and he's very excited about being here.
Mommy, I must have always come down to this bit and I must have up to the beach.
Did you? You'll be able to show me, won't you?
Very exciting. If we can verify his statements, it'll be a great case. Looks like a place that doesn't change too rapidly, so hopefully he'll be able to recognize some things.
Feel happy to be back.
Feel happy to be back, do you? You look happy to be back.
Leaving the airport, they board the bus to drive to the hotel, and they get their first look at the island.
Mommy, well, the mistakes in the house on the way.
I know, we're trying to see if we can see it.
You know what? I know the person who lives there, but...
You know the person that lived there?
I can't remember. Oh, dear. Mommy, it's hard to get to that bit.
You have to get out.
Because then you'd have to try and swim back. Mommy, I recognize every single bit.
Cameron, don't jump about the bed. Can you believe you're here at Barra?
Yes. I'm not exactly the same, but I recognise the beach.
You recognise the beach? Oh, it looks like a beautiful place, doesn't it?
Yes.
So what do you want to do tomorrow when we
And go to the beach.
go down to the beach?
Yes, and I'll show you, and I'll show you what I did.
Show me what you used to do.
Oh, my socks. I forgot to do it. In my socks.
Next morning, the investigation begins in earnest. Norma and Jim set off to visit the local heritage centre to look for any record of the Robertson family and the man that Cameron calls his Barra dad.
My better dad was called Shane Robertson, and he got knocked down.
Hello.
Hi, Norma, pleased to meet you.
Callum McNeil is the island's local historian.
Callum McNeil. Very
Nice to meet you.
Certainly the names don't immediately come to my mind. Certainly the name Robertson does feature, but certainly not the name Shane. And the name Robertson itself only features occasionally in the history of the islands.
There doesn't seem to be any evidence that a family called Robertson lived in a house by the shore. Could Cameron be wrong about the name, but right about the house?
I could see the beach when I looked out the window, and sometimes my brothers and sisters could go by themselves, and I looked out my window, see the planes land on the beach. And my brother said the black funny and how you die is you just go like that.
He has provided some clues about the location and the period in which he says he lived on the island.
Since he's talked about the planes landing and talked about phones, what sort of era would that put him in?
More than likely after the war.
After the
More than likely after the war.
And since he's talked about the plane landing and seeing that, we're probably thinking of a family toward the north end.
Oh, yes, I would say so. If the to-ing and fro-ing of aircraft from the beaches featuring highly, that would indicate the north end of the island.
It's not much to go on, but they set out on a trail back to the north end of the island.
I thought he was fine, but I don't know about him. I was starting to feel anxious and saying, well, I hope he does recognise something for his sake and probably for my own, because I'm desperately looking for answers as well.
Well, I think it's disappointing if a child goes to a place and doesn't recognize things. Often what happens is that by the time the child gets taken to the previous place, they're beginning to lose the memories anyway. Children seem to lose these memories by the age of 6 or 7. And this is the age where children are starting school and getting more fully wrapped up in this life.
They have driven past many of the houses on the island, most of them white, some near the sea. But Cameron recognizes none of them.
Sometimes I say I wish I could get in his head just for 5 minutes to see what it feels like to him. Because obviously to him it's real.
My dad and mum had long hair and she got cut short.
Later that day, they go for a walk on the beach. The adults may be disappointed, but Cameron is happy just being on the island.
He's delirious about being here, and at one point he actually said to me, is my face shiny? Is it red? Is it shiny? I'm just so happy. He keeps saying to Martin, see, I told you, it's not lies, it's true, we're really here, it's real.
Apart from the planes that land on the beach, there has been no other link between Cameron's memory and the island.
I actually spoke to him this morning and saying to him that if he doesn't remember things, it's okay to say he doesn't remember, because I'm worried that he feels pressured into saying things and he's saying no.
There is no white house above rock pools with a view of the beach where the planes land. No black and white dog. No family Robertson. They return to the hotel. The trail has gone cold. But next morning, they receive a phone call from Callum McNeil at the Heritage Centre. He wants to speak to them urgently. He has some new information.
Phone call today informed me that there were people living with the name Robertson on the north end of the island. In a house by the shore. It's a white house by the shore. Couldn't get much closer to the shore.
Callum's records were only for properties owned by islanders. But the Robertsons were from the mainland.
And when were they there?
60s, 70s, I believe. Yeah.
So we know exactly which house it was. We'd be able to go see it.
Sunderland.
Directions to the house take them down a different road to the ones they had been searching before. Jim and Norma don't tell Cameron where they're going. They don't want to influence his reaction or disappoint him. They follow a small coastal track. The house comes into view as they turn the final corner.
What's wrong? A wee bit. You all right? Is this your house? Don't you get sad? Is this your house? Yeah? It's okay.
What? Wrong?
You're getting a wee bit upset.
How?
It's okay. Does it make me feel a wee bit sad?
The usually chatty Cameron has become strangely subdued. Just below the house, there are rock pools, and there is a gate to the beach.
There's a gate round there. They said that was the secret way. They called it the secret way under the house. He's just saying he's excited, but he's sad as well. I think he's surprised and he's not sure how he's feeling. I'm not sure how I'm feeling either, to be honest. Can we come in? We've got a fire like that, haven't we?
Let me look.
What?
Look.
I know, wow. You okay?
Although much of the furniture and decor is recent, some of the features of the house, like the open fire, have remained unchanged for decades.
I could see the beach when I looked out the window, and something my brothers and sisters could go by themselves, and I looked out my window and I saw them playing.
The girls were in this room?
Yes.
And the boys were in the other room?
Yes. Oh. Okay. Was it the same stuff?
Did you just have the fire lit?
Are you glad you came here to see it?
Did you think that Barra Mum was going to still be here? Yeah? No. Do you miss her? You got me, haven't you?
You about ready to go back home now? Yeah, get on the plane, fly home. Well, it's been quite an interesting trip. I mean, we came here with a name and a description of the house, which was not very much to go on. And we found that, in fact, there was a family here, and that, in fact, they had a house in the right location and the right appearance of what we were looking for. At this point, the investigation remains inconclusive, but we've got some very solid leads to go on, and we should be able to find out the details of this Robertson family to see if, in fact, they do match with what Cameron has been saying.
Back in Glasgow, Norma has arranged a meeting with Ruth Borum, a genealogist who has investigated the Robertson family history for her. She has found that the Robertsons came from Glasgow and that they owned the house on Barra for more than 20 years. She has traced a Jilly Robertson, who still lives in Scotland.
But you don't know when I need it at the time. And I've been able to find a phone number and an address for Gillian and her husband.
Jilly Robertson would have been a child holidaying in the house on Barra at the same time as Cameron believes that he lived there.
I can pass that on to you, and
just so that would we be allowed to contact her?
Her address and phone number is in the BT phone book, so it's public knowledge. So that would certainly be a possibility. And she fits with the right sort of age. Yes. She had two brothers and a daughter.
Wow.
Norma now has a name and telephone number for a living member of the Robertson family. The search for answers is nearing its conclusion. This is the house that 5-year-old Cameron believes was his home in a past life. He believes that he lived here with his family, the Robertsons. The house, which exactly fits Cameron's description, was once actually owned by a Robertson family who spent their summers here in the 60s and 70s. Cameron's mum, Norma, has traced Jilly, one of the Robertsons, and arranged to visit her. But now, back in Glasgow, Cameron's reaction to the news comes as a shock.
Last night was just an outburst. 1 minute we're laughing and joking, everything was fine, and then it was just... There was tears, and then saying he was frightened, and then the next thing him and Martin were fighting. It got a wee bit out of hand. It was like somebody'd flicked a switch. He went from happy to... And it was, I'm scared, I don't want to go, Mum. This morning he came in quite wide awake and started asking me about Jilly Robertson. And at one point I thought it was quite strange. He actually says, could Jilly be my sister if she was a wee girl at the house? And it's kind of, I think we've all been thrown a bit. Now he's asking, can he go? He wants to go and meet her. Hello. Hi there. Pleased to meet you, I'm Norma. Hello, Judy. Very nice to meet you. This is Cameron. Martin, come on. This is Cameron's big brother, Martin. He's finding somebody that's possibly his sister. Is he thinking, oh, maybe I'll need to go back to that family? Because in Cameron's mind, the Robertsons were his Barra family. And I think that's what's frightened him. I mean, it's quite frightening.
This is the house here, and down below the house, a lovely beach.
Was that what it was like when you were in Barra?
Yeah. But could you recognise it quite well when you went to see it?
Although you were saying it had changed.
Yes, you see, I think it has changed. I think the person who's bought it now has modernised it.
Yeah.
I played in the beach and took my dog and played fetch with my dog at the beach.
Could I ask you, when you went to Barra, did you have a dog? Was there a dog there?
Well, certainly Callum and Peggy, who lived in the house, they had a dog, a sheepdog.
The black and white dog is just as Cameron remembers. But what about the name of his Barra father, Shane Robertson?
Yeah. Well, certainly there aren't any Shanes in our family. There were, one of my uncles was called James. Yeah. Now, Seamus, James, you know, that's quite a common connection. Yeah, one of my cousins is also called James, but it's certainly not Shane. Was the car accident on Barra?
This is what we don't know. He doesn't seem to be able to tell you.
I don't know of anyone in our family who died in a car accident.
That's how I was curious as well, if maybe even there had been a child in the family had passed away, or...
No, certainly there were no deaths of children in that close family.
So while many parts of Cameron's memory fit with extraordinary precision, others do not. The family name matches, so do the physical details of the house, the island, and the dog. But the name and death of the father figure do not.
First I thought I'm going to be disappointed if it doesn't make sense. And then there's a part of me, I think it would have been too freaky if everything was 100%. A lot of the things tie in and match up, seem to match up perfectly, where there's other things just don't fit in at all. But I look at it as, if I'm describing my past or trying to tell you things, there's things I would probably remember and tell you spot on, and there's other things, if my sister was telling the same story, it would be different. I just think there's been more things tied in than didn't.
If these, in fact, were past life memories, then we have to look at the question of why some of them were correct and some weren't. Was this just a remarkable coincidence, or could it be something more? He could have had memories from more than one life, and they could have gotten mixed in together. There's just a lot that we don't know about it.
And I don't think I realised myself how much it might affect me going into the house. I mean, for a split, it actually felt as if I could be physically sick. It was, I don't know, and then there was the worry, what if all these memories come flooding back to Cameron and upset him? And then I was thinking, what if he has had another mum?
He certainly responded to the house in a way that made it seem that this was a special place for him. He may have had some memories and emotions that somehow existed on this island beforehand in another life and then somehow carried over to him.
I personally think there's more to it than meets the eye, but there is some people, and everybody's allowed to make their own judgment, but I definitely think it's one of those things, there's something there. I can't tell you what exactly it is, but I think it's something we'll probably never know.
In the end, there are no tidy answers. But one thing is clear. The persistent memories that Cameron once had of another life on a far-off island trouble him no longer.
I think that since Cameron's been to Barnet and the fact that we've seen it for ourselves, it's as if it's put it to rest in his mind that he doesn't have to go on and prove it anymore. And he just seems so calm about it. Before it was, everything was hyper and jumping about, and where it's like, yes, I was at Barnet, I seen my house. It's just so calm now, it's quite unbelievable the change.
And the new series of Extraordinary People continues next week with Derek, who can't see and is the eye.
Yeah, it's weird for some of it to match up and some of it not to. I was thinking the same thing about multiple past lives, like if it was memories from, a previous one that was going to get mixed up.
Yeah, because some of that was very distinct, but some of it just didn't
the dog,
match up
the house, and like the plane on the beach, and like the gate going down to the beach, like the location, and at the very least, like that family. Like, I wonder if it was like, instead of he was in that family, if he was friends with that family and kind of got mixed up on the names or whatever, but remembered the dog and the whole place. Like, maybe it wasn't his brother and sister he used to watch go down on the beach. Maybe he was a friend or a cousin or, neighbor or something like that.
But he seems so connected to the mom and the dad,
Yeah, maybe so.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that, Alf. That's really cool, huh? I like that story. And, it's one of those things that doesn't just be like, there you go, everything matched up. It keeps you wondering. Yeah. But I love how the mom was so supportive. Yeah. She was so sweet and so supportive, and didn't seem like she was trying to lead him or like prompt him. It just seemed like she was just really just trying to give him the opportunity to experience it and see what he had to say. And of course, who wouldn't want confirmation of this? Like anybody would. Definitely. And I'm sure the guy from Virginia also would have loved to have everything match up perfectly.
Totally.
But yeah, it definitely gives extra options for sure. Good night, Shadow.
All right, Shadow. Good night to you.
We will see you on Monday. Thank you so much for being here. You were the coolest.
Thanks for hanging out.
So happy to have you.
And thanks for gifting subs.
Yes, thank you so much. That. You're so sweet.
Thank you for supporting.
You're the best. And we'll see you on Monday.
Yeah. Totally.
But yeah, that was super fun. That was I really liked that documentary a whole lot.
Yeah.
where they're just researching and trying to figure it out. But who's Shane? Who's Shane
Yeah.
Robinson? Robertson.
I don't know.
Weird.
It also makes me think, there was the one kid that remembered being like the aborted child from the lady. Like, what if Shane was an abortion they never talked about or something? Or, well, I guess they wouldn't remember.
I mean, he specifically said that was my dad.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But they didn't even say what the dad's name was. I was curious. Like, what is the dad's name?
Oh, no, she said it was James.
Oh, she said there's a cousin or something named James.
Cousin as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, she said that the
Yeah,
dad's
the
name
dad's
was
name was James, and then she had a cousin named James as well.
I see. Okay.
But
It's pretty
I don't know.
close.
But then, like, remembering that he got hit by a car. Nobody got hit by a car.
Yeah.
But when it said he got knocked over, like, I wonder if it wasn't something that killed him. Like, if he just, like, got bumped into or something, fell over, and that was just a memory that stood out.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's a weird one.
Who knows? And then the mom. I didn't really talk about
Mm-mm.
the mom or whatever. Like, I wish they asked the sister.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to know.
Yeah, I want the family history. Like, how close was he on any of these?
Yeah, and
Or
she had
far
long
apart,
hair
or
and
how
then cut
far?
it short or whatever.
Yeah.
It just sucks that he wasn't able to find his mom that was missing so much. That's like so sad.
Yeah.
That makes me really sad. But yeah, very cool story, and I love that he actually got to go to the island and was excited about it and was like, "See, here it is! Thank God!"
I told you it was real.
But yeah,
It's
how
real.
random, tiny little island,
Yeah.
like a tiny, tiny, tiny little place.
Yeah, trippy.
And then like the white houses by the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know
Nailed
if
that.
you haven't been to a little island. You live in Glasgow, which is like a full-blown city. You know, what do you know about planes landing on a beach and white houses?
Yeah. At 2 years old.
Yeah, yeah. It's very interesting. So it sounds like there's something to that.
Yeah. One thing I think is interesting too is, like, generally these kids, like, start talking about it as soon as they can talk. Like, it's almost like whoever it is that's gotten reincarnated, like, is just waiting till the moment that they can start talking about it and, like, bring it up. Like, they're so
Yeah.
excited to come out almost and
Yeah.
be like, this is happening, that's real. But then, yeah, they have to pass it through this filter of being a child.
Yes.
And having a completely
is
different
hard.
brain to work with. It's weird.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Alf the black and white dog too. Like, nailed that.
Yeah. And there was even a photo of it too.
Yeah.
Like, here's the neighbor's dog.
Yep. Interesting. But yeah, I don't know, man.
I wonder too, because he was saying like he would play with his dog, but maybe if he was a Robertson, maybe the dog was in fact the neighbor's dog that he would play with. Or what if there was relation to the neighbors?
Yeah.
You know, what if, who knows, what if there was a Shane in the neighbors? Like, did anyone talk to the neighbors?
Yeah.
Somebody's talking to the neighbors.
Yeah, this guy at the university wasn't doing his full job. We got more questions.
I know.
We
I
need
know.
to
I
get
wonder if
sleuth
there's a
out there.
follow-up.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if there had been any kind of information. Let's see. Follow up on. Okay. There's an extraordinary people thing. I don't know. Let's see. How old is this kid now? Oh, totally different one. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any follow-up. Here's the encyclopedia article thing. You don't hear that very often.
Yeah, nope.
So when did this come out? Doesn't necessarily say. But he was born in 2000. Oh shit. Sorry.
Oh, flipping things
Sorry.
around.
Let's see, investigation. So that was a 2005, 2006 TV production that came out. And okay, it's talking about the bar.
Wait, that said in 2007, didn't it? 2007, right there. Survival and research writer was asked to further investigate the case, accompanied by this guy. She interviewed the Macaulay family and associates, video recording and date stamping all the interviews. Her case narrative is given in a 2013 book, Things You Can Do While You're Dead. So it doesn't say what her follow-up was, but she wrote a book.
And her name's Robertson.
Yeah.
Which
no
is,
relation.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Okay, so let's talk about the bar visit, behavioral science, blah, 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 interpretations. I'm just trying to do a scan here and see. She points out Cameron said repeatedly, "I was part of the family," which might imply that he was considered or treated as such rather than being an actual member.
Yeah.
Okay, then it's talking about the documentary, all the little quotes. There's some criticism. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any kind of specific.
Yeah, there's that lady that wrote a book about it afterwards.
It's so interesting. Her name's Robertson. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So, pretty cool. I like that story. That's a good story. There's been good stories tonight. There was a lot of good stories.
A lot of good reincarnation stories going on.
I really think so.
Yeah. And how interesting that there's a department in the University of Virginia that follows all of them.
I know.
That's cool. I bet there's some cool stories in their
That's
archives.
so cool. That's seriously so awesome. I would be very interested to go out there and go check it out.
Yeah.
I really would.
Definitely.
Huh. So I think we covered all that.
That was fun. That was a good episode.
That was a good episode. I'm so glad that you guys
we have
enjoyed
episodes,
that.
Streams. Yeah.
Thank you guys for hanging out with us for that one.
Thanks
I'm
for hanging out.
glad that you guys
And thanks to our
enjoyed
lurkers.
it. Yep.
See, we got a
Anybody
few
that was
lurkers.
lurking,
We
that's
appreciate
totally
you.
cool. Lady, I hope you feel better.
Yeah.
If you're still here, and I adore all of you. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Yeah.
And letting us ramble about reincarnation forever. So, yeah. But we're going to be back on Monday.
Yes.
With our weird news.
Yep.
And then we'll be back next Wednesday with Plain Toast No Jam.
Plain Toast.
That's going to be awesome. So, I'm super excited about that.
Yeah. That'll be awesome.
So, you guys are all lovely, lovely people. Thank you so much for being here and supporting this fantastic show that we have. And we're going on a freaking year. We're about to hit a year.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, it might have already just hit a year because Chid just had his 12-month resub.
Oh, yeah, he hit his 12 months.
So, I guess it's
I guess
been
we
a
did hit
fucking year.
Wow.
Holy shit, man. That's crazy.
That's crazy. We've been streaming for a year?
Been streaming for a year. Wow. Cool. All right. Well, I don't see anybody on that is super intense. We have to raid them right now, necessarily. There's some music stuff going on. We've got the Hoot House. I don't know if anybody's planning on sticking around or not.
Oh, Alf, of course. Yeah. Thank you for your support.
Yeah, we support each other. I love it. And you're in Portland. You're not even that far. We should hang out sometime.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to Eugene for Mother's Day. And maybe on the way back, maybe we can meet up for dinner or something like that.
Cool.
That would be awesome. We're Facebook friends. So I can message you about that. That would be really fun. If it's possible, we could meet up. I think we're coming back on that Monday or something right after Mother's Day. So maybe we could do that.
Yeah. We get dinner or a drink or something.
That would be pretty cool.
On the way through.
Oh, unless we have to zoom back and do the pod on Monday. Shit. We'll have to figure that out. But that would be really nice to get to see it. That would be great.
Totally. That'd be great.
Make it happen. And we want to find Tony Smiley, too. We want to hang out with Smiley.
Hang out with him, too.
you guys are in the same hood. So, one day.
Isn't he in
One day.
Vancouver?
Yeah, but it's just on the other
Just right there.
side
but-
of the
yeah.
bridge. But yep, he's technically a Washington guy.
We'll meet on the bridge.
Yes, we'll be right in the middle. Cool. Okay, guys. Well, are you guys down? Do you want to hang out? We can do a little raid. We can raid some music people or something.
Yeah, do you guys feel like raiding, or are you gonna go to bed?
Yeah, let
We're
us
all
know.
gonna wander away as soon as we raid.
Because we don't need a raid just for the sake of raiding.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, I'm probably not gonna hang out too long wherever we go to. So. It's
No,
up to
me
you guys.
neither. I'm
If you
gonna
want
make
to see
some
something,
food.
we'll send you somewhere. Otherwise, we can just end stream. We won't even feel bad about it.
I know.
We'll just end stream.
Fuck it. Let's just
Yeah. We love raids, but sometimes it's more responsibility because you're done streaming
Yeah.
and then you have to go and talk to people. It's like,
I know, and depending on what's going on, sometimes I'm super down.
yeah.
But sometimes I'm just like...
And where we're raiding too. If we raid Fetch, like Fetch is always fun.
I know, but she's not on right now. Otherwise, we totally would raid her. But that's cool. We're just gonna end
say we just end it.
transmission. But thank you guys again. I appreciate all of you, and I'm just so happy that you guys are all in our little weird family. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
That
We
was great.
appreciate all of you.
We do, and we will see you guys back on Monday with more weird news because it's gonna be weird. I guarantee you
Gonna
that.
be weird.
We don't know yet. But it's gonna be fucking weird, one way or
Andrea says
another.
whatever.
Okay, Andrea, whatever. Cool.
good.
I didn't even know you're still there. That's awesome. I'm so glad you're still here hanging out. That makes
Yeah.
me so happy.
Right.
I hope that you enjoyed it. Shoot. I hope that you guys really enjoy. Actually, before we go, does anybody want to share one of their like favorite stories that we talked about? Is anybody super like impressed or intrigued or have any thoughts or anything specific on what we covered tonight? Because I would love to hear it. If anybody has anything
Or offended.
to throw out there.
Doesn't care.
No, I'm really curious. There was so many stories and so many things. So just, if anything stuck out.
That new YouTube channel, The Weird World, we're going to have to watch more of
That
those
Weird
videos.
World,
There's
yeah.
some cool stuff on there.
Yeah. I do agree.
And actually, I think so that one video I sent that was on the same channel, I think I subscribed to him when I saw that too.
Cool.
So I think I'm already subscribed.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I went ahead and made sure to subscribe. Yeah. That was good. Yeah, I want to check it out and watch some of the more videos. The narration was good, and I feel like the film quality was good. The subject matter was good. It wasn't like hokey. It was good.
Yep.
Cool.
Definitely. All right, everyone. Well, good night, all
right.
of you.
Good
Andrea,
night.
Alf,
See you guys again soon. Thank you guys
Lady,
for
Plain
all
Toast.
of the love and support.
Bingebox, everyone. Good night to all of you.
Everybody. Yes.
I
Okay.
appreciate you.
Good night, guys. See you next time.
Good night.
Bye.